I should probably switch the banner over, and I don't have any kind of intro music. Welcome everybody, and thank you for your patience. I inadvertently scheduled the broadcast for the same exact time as my favorite 2A live broadcast each week, the Locked and Loaded Latinos podcast, which happens every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. And I was thinking 7 p.m. Eastern for some reason, and then I did the math backwards or upside down because we live in Arizona where we don't appropriate daylight savings time like a lot of you people. So I miscalculated and pushed the time back three times, I think. Waiting politely for them to finish their broadcast. So again, thanks everyone for your patience. We're now going to go live here for as long as people are interested. So Every Second Matters is the channel that we're on, and that's the name of the project or the campaign. It's an awareness campaign. It was started in 2013, in the beginning of 2013, and the result of an atrocity by a single individual. The President of the United States suggested 23 executive actions be taken by just the executive branch as a reaction, as a gut reaction or a heartfelt reaction, but as a reaction of an individual based off of the actions of one horrible, deranged person, and an atrocity was used to do something against firearms owners' rights to marginalize gun owners, to create tension and stress, and to move the Overton window. So that's a bunch of ways of saying they attempted to blame guns as a diversion and a way to move the pawns on the game board in a bad way, in an immoral way, let's say. So the reaction to that was a gut reaction. The gun industry, the gun community reacted to that. No single individual, no leader, no organization, no blueprint was followed. But what happened was very similar to the reaction in 1995 to the assault weapons ban in 1994. There was a reaction, except it happened a lot faster thanks to the internet and thanks to our awareness of history. So in 2013, almost immediately within weeks, in fact, I just heard someone reminiscing about it, and the perception now in 2021 to that time frame was that it happened within 6 months, that there was a reaction from the firearms community to basically say hell no. And that stopped that suggestion that the executive branch could do something so atrocious. But what it also showed was that there was a grassroots potential when you mess with firearms owners' rights or gun owners' rights. So that was pretty cool. And a lot of us witnessed it who had been in fights before, some of us that are old enough to have been through, well, at least for me, the end of the Cold War, which was a thing. For me, this Y2K was a thing. We had the end of the assault weapons ban itself was a thing. At some point 10 years later, the end of the assault weapons ban was definitely a thing. The introduction of the internet was a thing. We had fires and scarcities along the way. So we've seen, plenty and scarcities of everything from materials to components to everything. So seeing that we had this potential to resist what could have been a softball for a different world, for a different kind of situation, that could have been a softball for a politician to restrict rights and to change freedom, really. So there was a really cool thing that happened in the country, and there was also something going on the internet, and the fact that YouTube had grown from its origins in 2009 as a cute kitten and funny video, like a reflection of an old funny videotape show or something. It turned into a community, and that community had conversations, and it established different aspects of its abilities. It would create people. Things were happening because of YouTube. YouTube was enabling things. It was allowing us to have more communication than ever, have more effective communication. We were all learning the tools and the abilities of the platforms. So there was a lot of stuff happening as far as the gun community becoming a stronger and stronger online presence. So as the resistance to those executive actions and the awareness, or I guess enthusiasm, started to dwindle, and we saw apathy arise. We saw fewer and fewer people being interested in the fewer and fewer things that there were to be offended by. Remember, 23 executive actions they did all get suggested at once, but they were implemented on Friday nights throughout the year. You know, here's 3 of them on a Friday night out of nowhere. Remember those 23 executive actions? Here's 8 more of them. Very few people sat there and monitored and resisted and made squawking noises and complained every time and then laughed at them, because let's not forget, a lot of them were jokes and we laughed at them sometimes too. But that community of people that was aware of those 23 as it went down to 11, and there was only 3 more, and there was 5 that could never happen. And like anything, the fair weather, the people would leave, and there was other things in life that were more important, so their priorities shifted, and we saw apathy start to happen. And that's the long story short, where Every Second Matters came from. We had this growing community of people who were aware and enthusiastic about grassroots activism, and we had a dwindling interest in activism in general. So we wanted to gather the people that were most active and most interested as often as possible without being annoying or unrealistic. So in a series of long conversations online with dozens of people who were interested in this and still very aware and happy, I guess. I don't know. We were satisfied with what had happened, not because of any individual. Remember, there was no recipe that was followed. We didn't do what we did in 1995, right? It was our grandparents that did whatever they did in 1995. We didn't do whatever we did in 2000 and whatever, 6, I guess, or 7 or whatever, those first shortage or something happened, or, whenever 7.62 by 39, because we didn't win then. We couldn't follow plans or recipes that didn't work. So it was new. It was just the reaction was guttural or reactionary. It was primal, and it was effective. And people that were aware and paying attention, at least some of us, were like, wow, what can we do to keep, to be aware, to monitor this and to maintain this going forward. So anyway, this series of conversations resulted in this concept that I won't get into every derivation of it, but the end result was, on the second day of each month, let's talk about what the Second Amendment protects. And let's model this whole thing after a thing called Pink Pistols, which is an organization that started, it's an awareness campaign that started in 2000 as a result of an article that challenged the LGBT or whatever they're called at the time community. Hey, if you're gay, you should have a gun, because what the hell? And then somebody named Cricket in New York, I think, said, okay, we should. And because of the whole stigma or something, and I don't know, but they didn't want to have an organization that you had to join or something you had to buy or any of that. So they just said, hey, if you want to be in Pink Pistols, you're in Pink Pistols. If you're consider yourself Pink Pistol, whatever, gay gun activist or whatever they were back then in 2000, great, go for it. And that's what we modeled Every Second Matters. We didn't want to have somebody who was the boss of it, or some agenda or some product or some result or some goal. It was just awareness, and let's do it on the second day of the month. About the most we came up with was the logo, mainly so that we could differentiate ourselves from the words every second spelled out matters, because if you take the words, at least in 2013, if you spelled out every second matters, that play on words, because of the seconds could mean moments in time, that is an organization, or it was an organization at the time, I haven't looked in a while, for victims of domestic abuse in Canada. And we did not want to interfere with that mission or confuse anything. So since we had already worked on this and we had gone ways, we weren't going to change it from Every Second Matters, and it was in Canada and it was a different topic. So I think everybody was okay with differentiating it with the word or the number 2, an ND for the Second Amendment. And then that also created a logo that's a little different than if it just would have had been the 3 words, right? So that's a little history to Every Second Matters. That's about as much as we created as infrastructure. Let's have a thing, an awareness campaign. Let's do it on the second day of the month, and let's see how long it goes. So now it's 2021, a couple of years later, and it's had its highs and lows. There's been people that put a lot of effort into it. A couple of those people are in here right now. There's been people that come and go. There's been people that come back after years. The original dude who was hosted the original videos took them down. Turns out he's not anti-gun. He's just ashamed of guns, I guess. So he took them down. So we don't have the original videos anymore. But maybe, I think somebody said they took them down off the web, so there might be copies of them somewhere. But who knows? Maybe he'll change his mind and he'll post them again someday. But it's not what it's about. It's not about any individual or any individual video or any individual anything. It's about the concept of talking about the second day of the month. I've talked a lot for 11 minutes about this. There's 5 people joining us tonight live. We did set up a channel here on YouTube, so that's where we are tonight. I'll just introduce the people as a courtesy. Makojo showed up. We got DJ out there. Anybody else who's not in here? Gun Loving Grandpa's out there. G23, as Gizzard would say, is doing good double duty. He's in here and out there. Whoever this is, saying good evening. Good evening. Do I know this person? And then Kingpin is not in here. He's out there. He is a giant bowling pin. And then I think that's everybody. So welcome. I'll shut up. I'll introduce everybody and then shut up and then get something to drink and then take my dog out, who's pissed that I started this whole thing without taking her out first. I'm going to let you guys have a chance to chat. If you're in that live conversation out here, you are part of the conversation. You're not watching a television. Many of you don't even know what a television is. You are not reading a newspaper or a magazine, which you also don't know what that is. You are using the internet. So that means there's a keyboard in front of you, or if you're on a telephone, you can wiggle your finger, and that will take images and bits and data and throw them across the tubes to us. We'll interpret that with Google's help to mean words and language, and then we'll be able to communicate back and forth. We encourage you to do that because this isn't programming. We don't have the answer that you are going to memorize. Instead, this is a conversation that you can only be part of by being part of it. All right, with that, I think Jeff was the first one in. So thanks, Jeff, for joining us. Jeff is, let's see, boom. Jeff Knox is activist here in Arizona, boss of the Firearms Coalition, and he'll introduce himself here in a second. Then I think G23 came in. Hit the wrong button, sorry, dude. Came in. He's the host of a live conversation every Saturday for basically as many hours as he feels like it, as many hours as are needed to save the Second Amendment each week. He'll introduce his project here in a second. And then we got Barbecue, which runs a barbecue, who's jumping in, and he runs live conversations weekly in the evenings for the people that really matter, the people that make the world go round, what we call the night shift, and focused on Second Amendment and guns. And he does other chats throughout the week and joins in with other things. Being one of the people who are consistent or providing consistency throughout the multiple live conversations, part of the blood in the veins that keep our live conversations moving and evolving. All right, with all that, I promise to shut up, so it's y'all's show. Thanks for joining.
What did I just do?
Well, since no one else is going to jump out first, I'm G23. I run a show pretty much every Saturday evening at like 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern, and like gun websites will say it averages anywhere from 2 hours to 6.5 hours. All depending upon the people in the audience and the people on the panel on how we keep the conversation flowing. If the conversation starts slowing down, we kill the stream and head out. Pretty much every second of the month, I do a video, post on Instagram, or try helping to promote the conversations out in public and interact with people. Where I am is a super conservative area, so there's not a whole lot of people going, "Oh crap, he's got a gun." Guess what? It's every day. You're going to see people walking down the street open carrying. It's no surprise. But we still can try talking and striking up conversations, even with like-minded people, to help make them, try to promote the reason why they are pro-gun to other people who may not be pro-gun.
Sounds good. Guys, I have to apologize because I came on early and sat and chatted with G-Webs about all kinds of ridiculous stuff. And now my time has passed. I have to go. So I'm going to have to bail out. I might, depending on how long you guys stay up and running, I might be able to get back and jump back in again in, I don't know, 45 minutes or so, but it just depends on how things go. And maybe we'll catch you next second if I don't catch up with you later today.
Right on. Thanks for jumping in.
Sounds pretty amazing.
Yes, and say, well, if we're doing introductions, I reckon that means it's my turn. I feel like everybody out there already knows me, but Guns and Barbecue, legally blind dude. Like G23 mentioned, his shows. I do show every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. and we run until we go, like G23 said, there's a wall in the conversation where we're like, yeah, we could probably wrap this up, starting to slow down, something like that. Usually try and milk it for an hour if we can, but some days are better than others. Then on Saturdays, I'm doing a barbecue chat that starts at 8:30 p.m. But did you guys get to do anything for Every Second Matters today?
Oh yeah, I was out and about. Had the jugs on the hip. So try to use a different firearm.
Very nice. Say, I was doing a bunch of yard work today, so I just strapped on the shoulder holster and open.
Yeah, we lost you after you strapped on a holster, and that was that.
Uh-oh. Am I there?
Yeah, you're back for a couple
okay.
seconds.
But yeah, I just strapped on the shoulder holster and open carried while doing my yard work for the better part of 7 hours. So, I mean, if neighbors were paying attention or anything like that, they got to see that. But with my vision, it's not like I can just jump in the car and decide to go a bunch of places. And yeah, so just did it out in the yard today.
Well, you can. You just gotta, feel your way down the street.
Yeah, except there's I only live next to a busy highway. No sidewalks or anything.
Bump to pass is a thing. I'm just saying. I guarantee you, after the first car or two that you hit, you have people to talk to about the Second Amendment and why you're trying to get out there to get to stores. Maybe somebody will say, you know what? Every second of the month, I'm going to come take you wherever you want to go, so you don't go damaging other people's cars.
If I was that lucky, that would be awesome. But with the luck I have, I just don't think it's going to work out that way.
You absolutely don't know till you try. I'm just saying. No stones if you
true.
don't.
So, any topics that we're covering?
What kind of E2M gear were you wearing today?
I had on my black E2M T-shirt. Which actually
Cool.
I need to get another one of those because with all the weight I've lost, that one has become a bit large.
All right, I'm back. Thanks for holding on. Went out there and did a little soil moisture testing with my new soil moisture probe. So, yeah, that's really great. Sorry, second time. So, pro tip: if your shirt's too big, you can just carry more guns underneath.
That is true.
Now we can't
Say,
hear
but
you
I
hardly
don't-
at all.
I don't typically conceal carry is my problem.
Well, you can both, but we can't hear you. What happened? Volume went down.
Oh, did it?
Maybe about a half. Yeah. Didn't it? Or am I crazy?
I jumped on my computer instead of my phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, it's not gone. It's just lower.
I'll mess with it real
Oh,
quick.
let's see. So, you guys are what chatting about what you did for Second Matters or something?
Yeah,
Yes,
just
sir.
trying to kill some time.
Right on. So that's one of the things when we first started this thing. It was basically just a bunch of us had chatted. It was like Yankee and Matt still hung out in chats instead of just lording it over everybody, like doing their own chats and inviting just the select few elites in like they do now. So like it was just they were regular people like everybody chatting. So because they were just regular people back then, and everybody else was just in there chatting. So Every Second Matters was just like, hey, you know how we chat constantly? Instead, why don't on second a month, why don't we talk about the Second Amendment instead of just whatever blather? And there was a bunch of people that were like, hey, that's a good idea. So that's kind of I've said it before, but that's kind of how it started. So that it wasn't like, hey, you know what, let's do X, Y, Z. But instead, it was sort of like, hey, let's just do something. And then we sat around for like 3 shows going, why don't we try this or that or the other thing? And a bunch of stuff kind of stuck more on the wall than other stuff. And that's where I think the open holster thing, and I forget who's the giant advocate of that. Somebody's like, there was a couple over the years now. There's been like real big advocates of the open holster or the empty holster. And then there's, I don't know, I can't say that I've tracked it or nothing, but I just can't remember the open carry part so much. There was actually different factions or elements or whatever you want to say, like fads in Every Second Matters, because there's been people that are rabidly anti-open carry. So I know that open carry was never like, well, let's definitely open carry, because back in the day that would have been fighting words for some people. Some people who y'all know, people change their mind. So anyway, I know that different things have happened. Wearing the shirt was like kind of one of the original like concepts, because you know you can wear a shirt for all kinds of things, but and then the patch was sort of like an anti, because I don't wear t-shirts. I wear gun shirts, but I don't just wear a t-shirt around. I usually have other clothing on also, so it doesn't really work having a t-shirt on if you're wearing a jacket or a vest or like a shirt or whatever, jacket, coat or something. Like it doesn't work if you got other clothes on also always. So the patch was an idea to have something on your hat or on a bag, someplace else, on a gym locker or some shit like that's not a piece of clothing necessarily. And then another thing, no one's ever, well, actually I shouldn't say that. Then people have made things, right? And then done different things with those things that were made. So there's been lots of different things. And then the idea of a show was sort of ingrained because we were already, was the whole point, we were already doing shows anyway. So what happened originally was it was sort of is it a round robin when you just pass the buck to everybody? Like somebody would say, I'm going to do every second. It was a big deal. Like, I'm going to do Every Second Matters. You know how when your like little sister's going to do host Thanksgiving for the first time or something, and everybody's like, well, a bunch of people are like, I don't care. And then a bunch of people are like, oh, she's never going to pull it off. And then there's like that aunt who's like, oh, you're never going to be able to do it like grandma used to do it or whatever. It's like that. So that's how Every Second Matters was for a while. I'd say for maybe 2 years, where it was like, I want to do it. No, you suck at it. You sucked at it 4 times ago. So no, you can't do it again for like 3 more times. And it wasn't actually rules like that, but it was competitive. And then at some point, someone broke the mold and was like, we can have more than one show. And then there was more than one show. And then being a show, I don't think was such a big deal. And then there's been barren, empty, horrible times for Second Amendment. When 9mm came around, it started tempting the Second Amendment advocates away and would say stuff like, hey, you know, we can have free ammo, or like, you know, there's no cancer over here, or like, we got cookies. And so people dropped advocacy like the plague and ran over and screwed out 9mm and, you know, never came back again. We don't know what happened to them. But so there's been horrible times too. So I don't know. There are no actual, what's the word, like traditions. So part of the fun or part of the frustration or part of the curse or part of the opportunity is that there is no, you know, it can be anything. So that can be awesome and that can be challenging, because a lot of people are like, well, if I don't have rules to follow, I can't do things unless I know how to do them already, you know. So some people are just never going to be able to do it. And then other people are more like, oh, I'm going to do it this way and then that way and the other way, and then nobody keep up with it. We've got it all. And then we've also got people that aren't here, which is most of the world. And then I don't know if there's a way to judge or determine who's the longest or the most Every Second Matters person. Like the person that's done the most or attended the most or seen the most. They'd have to come out of the shadow and say, like, here's how I can prove it with some sort of a token or a thing made out of ivory from back in the day, or like some tarnished brass version of an Every Second Matters that our grandparents used to use.
I don't know. I'd have to say probably like Kingpin.
Nowadays, he wasn't here from the
Yeah.
beginning, though. You'd have to, there's people that have been around since the beginning. Oops, I think he'll have to tell us, though, how long he's been around.
Is my audio better now?
It wasn't bad. I mean, it's clear. It's just that it was definitely way louder, volume-wise, on whatever you were on before, and now it's just different. It's less. But yeah, we
Gotcha.
If you were to yell or get an amplifier and yell into the amplifier, that would be louder, but you're all right. We can hear you.
Alrighty.
So I guess now I'm going to read the thing. So I guess what I was saying is appreciate the new traditions, because that's, I think, part of it is to see how it evolves or moves, or if something sticks for a while. I don't think there's anything wrong with someone petitioning for their Every Second Matters tradition to become the only and most effective Every Second Matters tradition, and all other Every Second traditions should be somehow removed from history. That'd be neat to see an Every Second Matters coup happen, and then perhaps like a bunch of like insurrectionists will start some sort of a resistance to the coup. That would be awesome. Some sort of infighting in a giant border war. Someone's going to profit off of that. That's what I'm looking forward to. Someone's going to profit. Anyhow, so I guess since nobody's to say anything in here, we're going to go backwards through the thing, or should we go forwards through the chats? See what people are saying. I imagine going forwards is the way to go. Going backwards.
Probably.
I'm gonna say be a rebel and go backwards.
Problem with going backwards is it's more relevant, but it's backwards. So a lot of times you don't know what the hell we're talking about. All right, so I can
Or just jump around.
I have to do it one or the other. That's the only two ways I can do it. I can open carry at home in Indiana, but not in Illinois, which is part of the reason that I left. I don't necessarily open carry, but I have a fit if I can't open carry. I want to be able to open carry anytime I want, but I don't really open carry that often. But I would. I don't have a problem with it. I do open carry occasionally. So been doing it more lately, though, but mostly when I don't have the kiddo with me. All right. So I'm guessing he means go to the range. I would take the kid with you to the range as long as the kid doesn't shoot that much ammo. I live in the most liberal county city in Nebraska, and open carry gets a lot of people's messed up. So I hear you. That's one of the reasons to open carry. However, then you got to be an ambassador. So that means you got to be all fancy and not offend anybody and blah, blah, blah. It's a lot to put on your shoulders. So can you even imagine? Today's the day of the cell phones. So, or cell phone cameras, I mean. So you do one weird thing, or you do something that gets perceived as weird from one angle and somebody's got a camera going. Yeah, that's potentially something, right? However, think about how many people are open carrying in front of people with cameras, and we still don't see all those videos, so it must not really be happening. So, yeah, I don't see the reason to piss people off, but at the same time, you can always say sorry, right? You can always go, oh, I didn't understand, or I didn't realize, and then know better next time for one particular place or something. But I don't know. I don't want to go around making people open carry either if they don't want to. What do you guys think? Should defense data open carry in Nebraska? It'll come down to our
And heck yeah.
right. So that's one. Oh, so he doesn't have to. We almost voted you in to have to open carry, so you came really close to having to open carry.
I would say
I am biased though.
Why?
I open carry all the time. I don't really like to
Why did you
conceal
vote
carry.
no then? I thought you were anti.
No. All I said was
Wait, hold
but
on. So
again-
we're revoting here. We're revoting here. Is he open carrying or not open carrying?
Yes.
yes,
And do you-
I would say yes.
Well, now you do have to open carry. There you go. So now you got voted in to have an open carry. I guess open carry and then have like a little what, handkerchief or something, like a little bandana or something. So if it offends somebody, you can set that over there. Be like, oh, act like you didn't see nothing.
Yeah, and you did mention open carrying an empty holster. I do know DJ Play Nice out in the chat has been doing that in Omaha because apparently they have some messed up laws in Omaha where they're forbidden to open carry. So he does the empty holster thing.
The question is, would he be doing the empty holster thing if it wasn't an open carry issue? Is the open
not
holster
sure.
the awareness, or is it the open holster an alternative to the open carry, which would be the awareness? Is that the way to say it?
I think it's an alternative to the open carry for the awareness, since he doesn't have the option to open carry.
I mean, I've heard him say that too, so I don't know if he's ever gone on and on about the reaction to it, but I don't remember him saying anything that struck me or made me remember, like, oh my goodness, like, so he must not, well, at least in front of me, he's never brought up something that was real big one way or the other. Right?
Yeah,
I think I've heard
a couple times talking to him, he's mentioned that he's had a couple interactions where, you know, people have, you know, kind of pointed at it or, you know, made reference to it in some way. So I guess it's been a bit effective for him. I mean, in that sense, far more effective than just me open carrying where I am. But I mean, I open carry every day when I go out. So, and I've never had anybody question me, come up and talk to me, anything. It's just kind of, it's one of those things that I don't want to say is common around here because you don't see very many people open carrying. But with the way our laws are, things like that, I think people see it and then just kind of disregard it.
I think the open carry every day is in itself a what's the word? Like not a protest, but an awareness. It's like an action of awareness. There's a fucking word for this. But I can't think of the word I'm thinking of. Anyway, but I think that it's doing something by incrementally, I guess, and like by doing a little something every day. It's not like you're making a big parade or shouting or pointing a spotlight at it, but just by having it there. I was trying to think of something that's maybe it's like pickup trucks or something. Like if there was never any pickup trucks, people might be like, what do you need a pickup truck for? Like it's too big and stuff could fall out of the back. What if a child was in there? What if an unattended rock fell out of there and crushed my windshield? Like there's all these potentials of what a pickup truck could do if they just looked at a pickup truck on paper or from afar. But since they are on the road daily with millions of pickup trucks, nobody cares about pickup trucks. I think you create that not by hiding your guns constantly and being ashamed of them and, you know, removing guns from anybody who doesn't like guns, but, you know, by the opposite of everything you do. So I don't know if that's counts as like having, you know, there's no way you can take the extract of carrying a gun every day open and then make it bigger on the second, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I wear a bigger gun on the second, or I put a light on it or something, like, you know what I mean? I think the
Yeah, the only thing
accumulation is the effort.
Yeah, the only thing I do that's extra on the second is wearing every Second Matter shirt.
Let's see. I don't know if I'm doing this right because I think I'm on this one. So then that would make Defense Day. I had to work today, so I couldn't open carry there. We've already established that now you can open carry there. If they have any problem with it, they can contact G23 or Barbecue and I'll set them straight that we already voted on it. So no issues. We solved that one. He said yo, so I guess that's good. He agrees. Then Barbecue is saying hello to Grandpa or back and forth. I can't tell them to go backwards. Now here, Kingpin is saying buck, but then if you go like 600 posts later, he says, I think the empty holster can stand for all the 2A. Open, concealed, 4473, mag size, etc. So first off, was Kingpin around since the beginning, since 2013? I don't want to blow somebody off if they haven't, because I kind of didn't. I did keep track, but then I lost the list that I was keeping track of. No, I never really kept track. So I really don't remember, and I don't think Kingpin's around, but I don't know. Because the reason I say that is because what he's talking about here is actually one of the reasons, from what I remember anymore, one of the things that I can't remember if it was somebody who was actually on a college campus or we assumed, because we do a lot of mansplaining and assuming things for people. If we assumed that a kid on a college campus couldn't have, I don't know, like a shirt or something that would have a gun on it. And I remember there being some sort of a thing about an open holster, and it was like, in other words, an open carry holster, like an outside the waistband holster. But I think there was somebody at the time carrying around a banana or something in it at a rally, and that was a meme or the beginnings of memes. You don't remember this, but there weren't always memes. So back in the day, there was this thing about a banana in a holster, and I forgot why that was a thing, but I think that somehow somebody had come around with that, and then somebody was like, well, no, you can't do that because it doesn't make sense, or not everybody knows what that means. And then it turned into like some sort of a card, I think, or something that you put in your empty holster so that people wouldn't think he lost his gun, or he took his gun out and it's in his hand or something. You know, that would be the biggest fear. Somebody actually brought that up, that like if you're carrying around an empty holster, somebody's like, where's that gun? You know, there must be a gun and it isn't in that holster. Where's that gun? So to avoid that, the idea was to put like a piece of paper in there saying something to the effect of like, I can't carry here or something. So that's why I was wondering if Kingpin was alluding to that, because then the open carry was to bring your eyes down to see something in the open carry holster. It didn't go very far. I think that only got knocked around a little bit. But it turns out he comes around in 2017, so he's relatively new. Even though he's a giant bowling pin, relatively new. He's only been around for 4 years of the, I guess that's a majority of the time. I was going to say, has it been 7 years? It's been 8 years. So he's been around for a majority of it. He counts as an old timer. I'll take it back. Grandpa's saying he started on YouTube in 16, but we're talking about Every Second Matter specifically. Me too. I don't like Woods is saying it. I don't like open carry for myself. It's a personal choice. Instead of saying I've had 2 really bad experiences here where open carry, where people caused a scene in the store, and it really bothered my daughter. That's what I was meaning. Oh yeah, see, that would be bad. Oh, so I missed his thing. So if we do his in actual order, had to work today, so can't carry. But my SIG, I think he's saying he's carried before he got there and then after. People got upset. Been doing it more when I don't have the kid with me, and that's where we started this whole thing, I think. It meant I open carry, do it more when the kiddo's not with me, don't need her seeing me go off on Karens who want to cause a scene, and that's where he's talking about somebody had given him some grief. And then, yeah, that's a thing, you know? So let's talk about that maybe, since nobody's saying nothing else. You go around open carrying, you're minding your business, and now somebody comes up to mask shame you, and they see you got your mask on, so they're like, dang it, I wanted to yell at this guy. Oh, I'm going to yell at him because he's got a gun. So they start yelling at you because their perception of the world is that you shouldn't have that gun on or whatever. What do? You worry about your optics, right? You just immediately worry about everybody else that's around, or do you deal with her? Do you run and hide? Do you stand your ground? Push her over? You get the police called on you? Do you call the police on her? Get Night Strike on the phone immediately? What do you do? What's some options?
I would. I would try and. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're half volume, so we can hear you.
Okay. Let's say it sounds different in my headphones all of a sudden. I would definitely try and speak to the person. I would try and defuse the situation. If they were coming up screaming and hollering, try and de-escalate. And if that looks like it's not happening, try and walk away from the situation. It's at that point it's a lose-lose.
See, because that's what I'm thinking. Okay, you're supposed to. Well, I don't know. G23, what do you want?
I'm probably going to calmly try to de-escalate the situation. And if it's not working, I'm going to remove myself from the situation due to the fact that, like in his situation, he had his kid with him. So that makes a whole different situation than just being there by yourself. You have to think about what the effect is on your child seeing you yelling at somebody else. Now, if it's just me, I don't really care. I'm going to argue with you, and, I'll have zero problems arguing with you.
Yeah, but I certainly wouldn't go yelling back at them or anything, because then it's the other person yelling is already going to draw a scene. Then if you start yelling back, then that's just gonna make you look worse, because in the public eye, they're already going to be going, oh, well, there's the guy with a gun. And look at how the media portrays everything already. So at first glance, it's not going to look good if you're yelling back. So I definitely wouldn't yell back. And like you said, calmly de-escalate if you can. I love having conversations and open debates. And, if it's going to happen in the middle of Walmart, so be it. But if it's going to create a big scene where somebody's hooting and hollering, I don't think that's going to be good optics. And especially if you start hollering back, then, you got a good chance of police being called, and it snowballs.
All right, first off, you don't want to be a hollerback girl. You got that doggo running around over there? Is that a dog we heard flapping its ears?
Yeah, he shook his head.
Okay, we're going to need a belly rubbing. Proof of belly rubbing would be ideal, but we'll take their word for it. This isn't National Puppy Day, but it might as well be because it's every second May. All right, so I don't think there's right answer or wrong answer. It's there's whatever the situation is, but I think that's interesting. So does anybody remember the Walmart walk? I think that's what they called it. The Walmart walk.
Can't say I do.
Is that a thing anymore? I don't think it's a thing anymore. So remember the ice bucket challenge where they would throw ice over each other, or the eating Tide challenge, or maybe the thing where you eat a bunch of Parmesan cheese. There's like these things that go around on the internet for the kids. Well, for the CCWs back in 2015, here's an important thing. I don't talk about this because I got nothing else better to do, because I don't fucking care, really. But back in 2015, a lot of people got interested in stuff because of what Obama did. So there was like a bunch of new people into the gun industry, and there was shortages of ammunition and supplies, and there was a lot of new money in the industry. There was a lot of new interest in what was going on, and a lot of people grew in size, and a lot of people, for the first time, stretched their legs and had people look up to them as knowledgeable. And there's a lot of things that happened back then, and then the same thing happened like twice at least since then. So when I bring these things up, it's to help illustrate that these are cycles, and the more I'm paying attention nowadays in 2021, the more I see that cycles are happening. Waves come and go, and the people that are the human beings that we're talking about in those waves get older. Your position, your situations change, your interests, your attitudes change, and your locations change, and your abilities change. So certain people do stick around, but lots of people aren't the same in 2015. They've come and gone, right? And then another wave of stuff happened when the suppression guns were banned from importation, or when parts kits had to be chopped up with their barrels. I mean, I care more about AK stuff, so my stuff that I remember is more that kind of thing. But the pistol braces was much more recent. But before that was the bump stock. Bump stock was 2018, I think. Think about it. How many people got in the game, that have been in the game that long? That's 3 years ago. 8 million new gun owners were not in the game. A bunch of you were in the game 3 years ago for that. So anyway, when we talk about these cycles, there's definitely people that are just going to be saying the same old every single time, because they don't have to change their tune. They can just say the same old thing, because a whole new group of people are going to come by and see what's going on for the first time, and they don't have to evolve or nothing. So anyway, I think I got off on a tangent, and I'm reading the comments, and I think I was getting at that. What were we talking about? How to de-escalate a situation like that? I think that we're going to find. I was asking about the Walmart thing. The Walmart walk in 2015, it was sort of like a fad, like the iceberg challenge or whatever, those fads, where you would, as a new CCW holder, walk around a Walmart for the first time concealed. Now, does that make more sense? Am I calling that the wrong thing?
I have no idea. This is the first time I've heard of it.
Okay, so keep that in mind. You guys have never even heard about this. The people that have heard about this before, I hope you realize that Guns and Barbecue, a dude who hosts a multi-hour conversation where he literally puts in the name that he wants it to be about 2A. He asked everybody what they did 2A. I haven't met anybody as 2A as him since Clover or G23 or some of the other people that are actually active these days, right? This dude has never heard of the Walmart walk before. So if you're out there and you know what I'm talking about, you understand how universally aware the gun community was of the Walmart walk. For me, the Walmart walk was the beginning of me rolling my eyes and going, why am I doing this again? Because I didn't know at the time that I was getting sick of the cycles, because I hadn't quite figured it out yet back then. So anyway, I just keep wanting to focus on that, because the more I think about it, the more the metal fatigue, right? The back and forth, that you wiggle a piece of metal, it's going to eventually tear, rip, and break, right? That fatigue happens to us emotionally as humans, as rational beings. When we watch things that are frustrating, we're going to get sick of it, and we're going to get metal fatigue, and we're going to throw our hands up in despair or frustration and walk away from a situation that we don't feel we have any effect on. And that's one of the reasons I think a lot of people leave. So I keep bringing this up because people constantly leave the fight, and it isn't because they haven't become 2A anymore. They just have gotten all kinds of reasons, right? I don't want to say what the reasons are. Shit tons of reasons. Think about why you don't like birthday cakes as much as you used to, right? Fucking things change, and you can't imagine why you would ever not like birthday cakes, but you probably don't give a shit about birthday cakes right now, right? So things change. So I'm just keep bringing that up so that people that are going to get frustrated. And one of the only questions I ever get anymore is how to stay motivated. So people that are getting frustrated with this shit, think about this. The people that don't know the Walmart walk are some of the most active people we've gotten 2A today. So I'm going to go back to the Walmart walk. It's just a thing. You walk around for the first time as a CCW holder in a Walmart with your gun concealed. Imagine if you've never carried concealed before. Many of you might be new or relatively new to concealed carry. It is uncomfortable and weird, and it feels like you got a giant sign on that says, I'm carrying around my gun. When you walk around inside of a Walmart, it gives you a little bit of comfort, a little bit of familiarity, since it was part of a communal thing that everyone was participating in. It made it a little easier. It was an introductory thing. And I suspected it was going to last forever. Like a lot of things you suspect are going to last forever when they're strong trends. But now we see just a few years later, relatively, some of the most active people in the community don't know what the fuck it is. So anyway, the Walmart walk is like that. I suspect the open carry, I guess what I got into the whole thing was that I suspect, some of this stuff like the Second Amendment challenges, or what they call it, Second Amendment audits, where people will be weird and walk around and try to get cops to figure out if they know the law. I don't know what the justification all that is, but the things that we see as kind of weird things or whatever, those come and go. They come back in different times or whatever. We were talking about what to do in that situation with you're open carrying in a store and somebody comes up and has a problem with it and confronts you, and then what to do with it. I honestly don't know. I've been blabbing or whatever, and we're an hour into it now. So nobody, I imagine, gives a shit too much about this, but, or if we finish this concisely or not, but I don't think there's an answer as much as a potential for maybe even a series of, almost like a project. Like, how can you scenario build around that? How can you, speaking of somebody who might have been around longer than anybody, how can you scenario build? How could you build some sort of a thing to create those kind of situations where then you could strategize? Actually, Complete Combatant is a place out of Georgia that's a couple, I think it's a husband and wife, and they, Shelly and Brian Hill, I think, Georgia, and they've got like a big ant with a bunch of guns and flashlights and stuff, and it's the Complete Combat. It's the Complete Combatant, and their logo is a combat ant, right? Combatant. They do a pictorial training or something. I forget what it's called, but it's like visual training, and it's, I think, a bunch of flashcards or a bunch of scenarios, and it's like visual scenario based. So, imagine a parking lot that's kind of dark and person in a hood, and what do you do next? I think, because I haven't actually taken it, but I've heard people talk about it. So there's potentially something to do like that, where you have scenarios on how to de-escalate or how to react. Anyway, Smeggy's in here, so we don't have to stick. Oh, he left. He got sick of us. He's 2A, but he's like 2A for short periods of bursts. That's what happens when we move to California. I was going to just say that we don't have to stay on it forever, but I think my concern was the same as G23 said, I think, that not so much the you and the other person who's anti or just being mean to you, but how do you react with your kid to that situation? Because again, I wouldn't want to be the person who just like, oh, I got a gun. Whenever we have the gun, we got to cower away. We're always wrong when we got a gun on. Like, I wouldn't want to send that message to my kid, right? So I don't know. You people with kids, you got it tougher than the rest of us. Because I think it's a big piece.
And I completely neglected that part of the scenario, that you have your child with you. And with that, I'd really have to judge by the person that is confronting me. If they are over the top, I'm getting my kid out of there because I don't want them in a bad situation. Now, if I'm with somebody, hey, grab the kids, go get something else. I've got somebody to talk to, apparently. But if I'm there by myself, me and the kid are split, and I'm not going to have my child in a bad situation. And later on, I can explain to them, hey, this is what happened. There's some people out here that, for one reason or other, don't like firearms, etc., and explain to them why I handled it the way I did, and let them know that we don't have to be ashamed. We're exercising our Second Amendment right, and you don't need to hide it. But because they were with me that day, their safety becomes the main priority.
I don't want to cut it off there if somebody has something to add, because that's kind of lame to cut it off in somebody's stream of thought or something. Smeggy just jumped in. I don't know if he had something to add to that, because if he doesn't, I'm definitely digging into Walmart Walk.
Yeah, I have to say I'm not even quite sure what we're talking about. I guess if someone yells at you when you're open carrying or whatever, but I won't add nothing.
Yeah, it was sort of a weird scenario, I guess, that I just grabbed out of somebody else, what Barbecue was saying. I think I just created, hey, let's make a scenario out of that and then ask the question. Anyway, so in my blah, 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 I came up with that Walmart. You remember the Walmart walk, right? You were in that era of people?
Yeah, I think so. That sounds familiar.
Oh, so that's interesting. I can't remember anymore because I don't pay attention to everything. And that's one of the things that I think I'm going to try to do. Not pay attention to everything, but archive some of these trends and some of these things, because I think that illustrates what I've been frustrated about. And I'm just recently getting focus, or I guess, way to explain what has been bothering me so much about whatever, like this whole thing. So, again, I wish somebody was out there that remembers the Walmart walk. I mean, I'm not that fucking old. You know, I'm older than some of you, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like we're talking that long ago. We're talking 2015. Is it really that long ago? 7 years ago? So anyway, it just blows me away that, yeah, I never even thought about it, but I think that is an excellent one because it basically, I fucking won't say it again. It was just such a big thing that everyone knew about. I never really figured it would ever go away. I never thought about it one way or the other, but it's certainly in hindsight now, at least for all the people that experienced it. Quark, right? That era. We talk about Quark. That's a dude who hung around and was here when Gun Channels was first made in 2013. Like that era for sure. Those people that came out of the 2012 shortage / Obama executive actions and the challenges and the resistance to tyranny there. Like, boom, that brought a lot of people in. But there was a lot of people jumping in because we're not going to be able to own an AR-15, which is a lot different than I'm scared of riots or whatever, or I'm scared of not being able to buy a pistol. So Woods is saying he wasn't Gun Channels. That doesn't matter at all, but he remembers it. So well, if he wants to jump in, I think he's got a link. He's got time. But Kojo was saying he found a CCW Walmart video from 2011. So, whoa, shit, hold on. I just realized little plant eater came in from the porch. I got to go check on my plants. I'll be right back. You guys can talk amongst you.
All right, well, while G's gone, I just remembered it was last Every Second Matters. I did have an interaction of sorts at Walmart's, and the only reason I even thought of this was because of the scenario G had presented with the, having your child with you and etc. I was there at the customer service desk, and I was getting a couple things taken care of, and a gentleman walks up to the teller that was like another spot down because there was one in between that wasn't being used, and the first thing I hear him say is, "You don't know me," which was an immediate red flag to me because that's not something that you lead off with whenever you're walking up to a teller. You say, "Hi, I need, to return this, or this is broke, or I'm cashing this check, or I need to send money via Western Union," whatever the crap it is. So when somebody walks up and says, "You don't know me," like I said, red flags went up immediately. And I was there with a friend and my middle child. So this guy, I don't know if he was trying to cash a check or something. Either way, they needed his ID, and his ID could not be read. And apparently by law, they can't accept his ID because it's not readable, and they couldn't enter the information that they needed to enter. So this guy becomes increasingly more agitated as they are calmly telling him, "Hey, blah, blah, blah." And I get done doing the things that I need to do, but it's a bad situation, I can tell. So at that point, I told my friend, take the little one here, go back to the girls section, and her mother should be back there to get her from you. And I stuck around the customer service area, and while this was all transpiring, this guy's getting worse, and I'm now going through my head, am I going to have to intervene? What's going to happen? Which I was like, I'm not intervening unless this guy goes 100% ballistic. So I'm standing there watching. Eventually, he F-bombs them, calls them a couple C words and whatnot, and goes storming away. And at that point, they're like, "Hey, language!" I was like, "Whoa, shut up! He's going. Let him go. Don't say language or anything like that. Just let him go." I was like, "It's de-escalating itself now." I was like, saying that it's gonna bring him back. Just let him go. And they kind of looked at me for a second. I was like, just making sure everything was all right. I was like, not too worried about it or anything, but bad move, shit like that. And they thanked me and whatnot and said they appreciated it. Then I went to wandering to the little girl section to find my daughter and my friend. And as I'm starting to head back there, you hear the guy walking out of the store talking to himself. And like I said, that was a situation where I was like, all right, I'm going to stick around, get the child out of the way. And like I said, it just happened to be on Every Second Matters last month.
Yeah, that's always tricky of like when to jump in or when not to. That was good though. You kind of had thought ahead of time, was like, all right, this is the point where I'll do something.
Yeah, and part of that is having worked corrections and armed security and the trainings that I've had. I like to think I'm a bit more observant and rational in my thought process with some of that stuff. So, I was like, because part of me was like, well, they got insurance, stuff like that. If this guy's just going to be like, hey, give me all the money, but he doesn't have a weapon or something, guess what? He's getting all the money because I'm not bothering with that. You guys have insurance. But if it got to a point where he turned physical, well, that's a different story.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to segue real quick in something that happened to me yesterday. I don't know if people saw my Instagram, but I got involved in a little something. I was sitting in my house, hear this giant like thud. So I look out the window. There's this like powered scooter sitting down on the sidewalk. I'm like, oh, someone like fell down or whatever. And I look over a little bit in front of my neighbor's house. There's two guys like fighting on the ground. I was like, oh, what the hell's going on here? So I went outside, and there's one guy on top, the other guy's on the bottom, and the guy on the bottom is yelling, "He's got a rock. He tried to hit me." And I see there's like this brick sitting on the sidewalk. So I grab that and toss it out of the way so neither of them can get to that. And then really I was just kind of like, what's going on, guys? Like, what are you doing? Like, come on, come on, man. And the dude on top ends up like letting the guy up. The guy on bottom jumps up, grabs a scooter, and takes off. I was like, okay, what the hell? So that's I'm giving you the facts that I had at the time, right? Because it's like all I saw, two dudes on the ground, one guy on top, he's winning. The other guy's on the bottom yelling, "Hey, he tried to hit me with a rock," whatever. Come to find out, this other dude came around in a car and he jumped out. He had witnessed something that I did not see. The guy on the scooter apparently shot a slingshot at the guy who was on top. And then it was like after the fact, I noticed like 3 houses down, there was a dog just standing there, like with his leash hanging. And I was like, dude, what the heck, man? Like, I felt really bad. So I'm like, if I would have known, like if the dude on top would have yelled, "He tried to shoot my dog," or slingshot my dog or whatever, like I would have helped him kick that guy's ass. Like, don't be mean to dogs. So I don't know. It's something I've been wrestling with, to be honest. I was up all night last night going back, like, did I do the right thing or, what the hell? So, and then I did end up actually, I know, buddy, you're mad about dogs. That guy in the scooter ended up driving past the house like 2 or 3 times. So I ended up calling the cops and saying, there's a guy in a scooter, like he's causing trouble. He has a slingshot. He already got in a fight with one dude. I don't know if he's looking for that same person or looking for someone else. But I don't know whatever happened with that. I saw a cop car drive up and down, like, I think 3 times, and they probably didn't find him. He probably took off after that. But I don't know. What do you guys think? What would you have done in that situation with the information that I had at the time?
I think that you can't second guess things that you've already experienced, and that I think there's a problem with that. I think that you get neurotic and you start to think that here's what happened and here's what I should have done, and what I should have done seems better in 2020 hindsight, therefore it is better, therefore I should have done this next time I'm doing this. Does that follow? Am I getting that across? I think there's a real danger in intellectually in assuming that just because you experienced it and you reacted in a certain way that has anything to do with what should be done or what you should do next time. So I understand that it's difficult to remove yourselves from shit like that, especially in the immediate, but I don't think there's much to be gained. Now, I might be wrong. I'm not a coach and I'm not a therapist or nothing, so I don't know. But that, to me, I've heard it both ways, and it rings clear to me to not try to pull specifics from an experience because you're too close to it. I mean, so I think that I'm glad that you didn't get hurt and that you didn't facilitate like a horrible thing. And it sucks that you this particular roll of the dice, but you're a good dude and you're trying to do wise things. You could have thrown a fucking cement brick at one of their faces. You could have shot somebody in the leg. I mean, you could have done it, overreacted in a million different ways. You didn't. I'd say look at that you didn't overextend yourself while still attempting to be good, and be glad that in this particular roll of the dice, there was barely any consequences, but I wouldn't take it much further than that. But if anybody else wants to game it more, I'm not a coach. I'm not trying to shit on nobody either.
Right. Yeah. No. And that's the one thing too that I'm happy about is I didn't just come in and hit the guy on top or whatever just because the dude was yelling. I'm like, I didn't see the dude on top throwing any punches, so I'm just like, all right. I literally like verbally was like, you guys should stop. This is dumb. Like, what's going on? And then the dude decided to stop. So I'm like, all right. Now, if the situation was different, like, I don't know. I won't overthink it, but it's like now if there were weapons involved or something, that's when it's like you got to make
in a city where you're not allowed to have a lot of things, but on the other hand, you're allowed to think outside of the box, and you are allowed to do a lot of shit that they don't mention. So I was just at the store. I went to an Ace, right? I normally don't go to Aces because they're overpriced in my opinion, but
Ace is the place.
Yeah, exactly. I figured I've had them as clients before. I mean, I do appreciate what Ace has to offer. It's just that I don't have the kind of money to shop at an Ace all the time. But I'm into the garden, so I went there to check out their garden thing, and I actually did buy my what do you call it? I'm gonna try to say water meter thingy. Tell me the humidity of my water or my soil. Is that the right word? Whatever. The soil moisture. That's what I'm trying to say.
Hydrometer.
So, maybe that's what I was thinking. Anyway, soil moisture probe. I needed to buy one. I wanted to buy it locally, so I bought it at the Ace. Hell was I going to talk about the Ace? So there you go. Totally lost what the hell. Trying to figure out what the color moisture probe was called. I lost what I was going to say.
Thinking outside the box, or like the penny or whatever. What you were thinking about?
Yeah, no idea. My Ace sells root beer. I'm lost. I'm eating chocolate, so I'm done. I don't know if Knives is out there, but I'm eating dark chocolate.
So, Smagsy, it's hindsight's 2020, and it's a pretty crappy way of looking at life. You can always run through different scenarios, being like, "Oh, I could have done this. Oh, I could have done that." But the fact is, most of the time, what you do in the instant when you're not thinking, "What should I do?" it's more likely the correct thing you needed to have done.
See that last part again?
Oh.
The last sentence part.
Oh, damn it.
They got him.
What did you say? What was that last sentence again?
I said they got him.
You, G23.
When you're in the situation, what you do without thinking about it is normally the right thing that you should have done, because you're just acting out of instinct. That's when your instincts are taking over, and more likely than not, you're gonna do, probably the correct thing. I mean, you could be wrong, but you know,
No, I hear you. That's what I wanted. I didn't catch the very first part, but I knew that you were right on there. So that's way faster than, or more succinct than what I was trying to get at. I did remember though when you were saying that what I was trying to get at with the whole thinking outside the box, and then I was trying to lead it up that I went to Ace, that I normally go or whatever, but I went to look at their garden section, and what I found there was I think it was granulated coyote piss or bobcat piss or something. So like you buy different kind of granulated pee for different kind to keep away different kind of critters. So I think the coyote piss was for rabbits and something else was for something else, right? So thinking outside the box or what, if you were to have not a water pistol, because that could be taken different ways, but just a water balloon, for lack of a better word, or some version of a squirt gun, a spray bottle, right? Just a little spray bottle that was something gross that wasn't going to kill anybody, but you know, the equivalent of a stink bomb. Would something like that be an option if you walked up and something was happening and you didn't know what was going on, but you knew that the immediate best result is for the altercation to stop? Just, you know, is basically a version of throwing a bucket of water on them, except in a way that you don't have to carry a bucket of water around, you know, something that's stinky. Or I wouldn't throw pepper spray, but maybe even like a really strong mint. You know, I just got this mint plant. It's almost obnoxious how like strong the mint smell is from it. Like something that you could almost not be upset about, but at the same time, you're going to stop you from doing what you're doing. Like, holy moly, somebody just dumped a bunch of mint extract on us.
unfortunately, in most states, something like that could be considered at least a 4th degree assault.
As I say, you're assaulting, you're touching them, you're putting something on them, you're creating an element to the.
Yeah, so I mean, you could catch a beef. You know, you could end up, you know, getting a criminal charge out of trying to break up a fight. Sometimes it's just better to let it happen, or you know, just use a verbal. And if verbal doesn't get it, then you just call the police and let them deal with it. Sit back and video it.
Yeah.
Woods is saying that he took fire extinguishers and beat somebody, stop them from having a fight. I think it would have been just as effective, even more so, to just shoot the fire extinguisher at him, you know, the foam or whatever at him.
Yeah, I like what Smeggy did, getting rid of the brick, making sure nobody else could get to it. Personally, I would say, hey guys, cut it out, crap like that. Try and defuse it that way. I'm not getting involved physically. Even when I did security, there's times where a venue I'm at, you know, a couple people start fighting, they're like, you go break it up. I'm not messing with that. I'll go yell at them, be like, hey, cut it out, go outside, something like that. But getting involved physically, you're paying me $9 an hour. I'm not armed. Fuzz off. And that was, you know, I was doing that for work in a setting where I'm not doing it for work. I don't have the luxury of having the company back me up if there was some lawsuit or something like that. I'm just going to sit back, let it happen. Like I said, give verbal commands to break it up, stuff like that. If it were to escalate to a point where somebody's life could be in danger, then I will intervene accordingly. But until then, if it's just a mutual combat, you got to let it play out how it plays.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely, like I said, I did what I felt was comfortable. You know, like you said, I didn't physically get involved, so I'm like, I'm staying back a little bit because I don't know exactly what's going on. But I just honestly, I brought it up just being every second matters. You know, that's something to think about. And let's say there were weapons involved and still not having all the information. You know, it's one of those things. And I think in this day's climate where everyone's judging everything with 2020, it's kind of a good reminder that, you know, sometimes the people, they have 10 seconds worth of information and they make a decision. So I'm glad that it worked out okay, but I just thought it was an interesting scenario. But maybe someone out in the audience or some of you guys might, you know, take a lesson from and just think a little bit.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you're thinking about, in terms of, let's say you felt the need that you needed to get physically involved and help break that up. Let's say it was a matter of having to draw your weapon on limited knowledge, you might end up shooting the person that was actually the victim. That in which that's a terrible thought to have. But given all the things that you just processed and things like that, when you find that out later, that's going to suck.
It'd be really tough. You have to make a lot of things would have to go wrong, a lot of misjudgments. So the solace I would offer there is if it did happen ever, we'd hear about it from the antis because they would never let anyone live that down if there was that kind of a mistaken judgment. And if it happened infrequently, we'd hear about the rare cases often, and we don't. So I'm not saying it never happens. I'm just going to suggest that although our minds can bring us, the people who are aware of all the intricacies and the details and the mechanisms and the implications and the consequences, those of us who are responsible enough to understand all that and try to keep track of it and still, carry, that doesn't actually always play out just because something could happen or it seems like it's obviously could happen this way. If it did happen, you have to think realistically. If it did happen, fucking the 14th richest person on this planet is paying the person who was the marketing genius for Monsanto. And if you don't understand the implications of that, read about Monsanto. The chick who worked for Monsanto got pulled away from Monsanto and works for the 14th richest guy on the planet to take away our rights and the rights of your kids.
No, that's a good point, because that would be a headline all over the place. Is
that's right. They would definitely have the resources to destroy gun ownership if that happened. So anyway, I don't want to rant on it because I don't know. That probably does happen, but I'm just saying let's not worry about and ostracize ourselves like the NSSF would like to do. Let's instead pay attention to the reality that it doesn't happen all the time. So really, this kind of situation isn't happening all that often, that someone would have to draw a gun. Now, here in what we were specifically talking about, somebody has to draw a gun, use it, and have found out that he used it incorrectly on the wrong person. Again, that can happen. It could happen, I should say. But if it did happen, I'm almost positive we would hear about it often. And it would be like that case that we all know about. That being said, I don't want to discount the other part is, let's say nothing happened. Let's say something happened almost exactly like what Smeggy just did. Although you add to it the layer that the police are called and you were carrying, you didn't have to touch that gun at all. But now you're dealing with the police with your firearm. And depending on if you're just a witness or if you're a part of that, are you now a statistic? You were armed and it was an armed situation. It was in a situation that turned to felony because somebody was armed. I mean, are they taking it from you? Are you dealing with that? Is there attorneys? What could have been just, hey, everybody go home, turned into, oh, well, now we have to write all this down because this guy's got a gun on him. So lots of stuff to unpack there. I'm not an instructor and I'm not a big fan of trying to spitball all the what ifs over these kind of chats. Much rather throw the concepts out there so that responsible people who understand consequences can think about it themselves. I think that's a better conversation to have with instructors, people that have had actual experience with the law, not experience with pulling a trigger. Anybody can play the guitar. It takes a lot more than playing a guitar to be in a band. So to talk to people who are instructors who actually have experience in the world is like talking to Jimi Hendrix or and I don't know enough people in bands, but an actual person who's got experience living in the life of a rock star, getting a lot more on real life experience how to play that guitar than somebody who's taught guitar their whole lives, or just somebody who plays well, or can buy a really nice guitar and make it sound good. It's not the same thing as being in the thing. So having an instructor who knows how to pull triggers is great. Having an instructor that can imitate what somebody else has shown them is fine for skills, but for tactics and strategies and stuff, let's talk to somebody who's been in a courtroom, has enough alumni and students to have dealt with multiple situations and understands not just theoretical but in practical sense what can be done or what can be strategized in. And again, the reason I don't like to do this stuff online is because most of the places that when I was paying attention more to instruction and training, firearms training, those instructors that actually care about their students and the consequences and repercussions after a lethal encounter or even a firearms
use or encounter or whatever, you can't just blow this stuff off as like, the fun part. Oh, the tactics or like when to draw and all that, because there's all kinds of more stuff involved with, all the stuff I kind of alluded to there. The police show up and there's reports being drawn up, and do things become aggravated because you have a firearm? Do they go from misdemeanor to felony status just because you're standing there with a firearm? When to get involved, when to not get involved. I'm definitely not saying never get involved, because then we all turn and put out our gun and put salt on our tail and never do anything. We're useless. So you don't want to jumping into the battle either, right? Because we're not doing that though. That's the good news. So I guess I was getting back around to the beginning that all this is theoretical, and that's why I don't like to do it online. More than just kind of scratch the surface.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was just kind of throwing it out. I welcome any discussion. If anyone wants to go over to my Instagram, I'll talk with them there or whatever. But I think I thought of something when you said that point of, you got the rich dude like begging for something like that to happen so he can jump on it. Is that the headline would be like, vigilante slaughters innocent man or something? Like, we'd hear about it a million times.
Yeah, like big guy thought he was so good and shot the innocent victim.
Yeah, and there definitely are a lot of layers to unpack. And I didn't want to hijack the chat, but it's Second Amendment related, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna give a bunch of stuff to talk about. Still eating chocolate. So anyway, we got 13 people out there, and Gabriel is leaving. So good night. Otherwise, if people want to be part of the conversation, say stuff out there. We're not trying to prove nothing. We just want to go live on the 2nd of each month to talk about what the Second Amendment protects. We've got 4 people in here. We can keep talking, or we could wrap it up. We've been going for more than an hour. Let us know if you're out there still. Throw some topics out. If you want to jump in, let us know. There's links out on my Patreon. I don't know, half a dozen people or more have a link in their email.
I'd like to go back and touch on one thing real quick, G. You had mentioned if you're going to open carry, you're an ambassador at that point. And that's one thing whenever I talk to people about open carry is making yourself presentable. If I'm open carrying, which like I said, almost all the time, then I'm wearing at least a good clean pair of blue jeans, polo shirt or a button-down shirt of some sort, and I'm making sure that I'm presentable. I'm not wearing, gym shorts and, a tank top with a, gun hanging off of a belt that isn't holding it for squat. And, I make sure that my gear is tidy and presentable.
I can see where you're going with that, Guns. I'm gonna play the villain to that situation. So you're misrepresenting yourself to try to bring a point about what's going on. I have no problem going out. I'll open carry. I have a t-shirt on. I have shorts on. I have sandals on. You know what? If you don't like the way I dress, I'm not here to worry about what you like and what you don't like. If you want to buy me a 3-piece Armani suit, fucking let's go get it tailor-made.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's something that people have to do. It's just that my thing about it more than anything is you got these people, they'll go out, they'll get the $10 Walmart belt that is good for keeping up your pants, but that's it. And, they've got the Bulldog nylon holster, and that's flopping around, and everything just looks like it's going to fall off, and it's just not a good look. I have no problem with, like you said, you're going out in sandals, I need to get a new pair of Crocs because I love going fishing in Crocs because I can go out in the water, things like that. But like in the summer, I'll wear blue jean shorts and I'll wear my Crocs and things like that. It's just
right under the knee white socks on.
Oh God, no.
So, look how he protested immediately.
Yeah, no. Let's say G23. Do you wear socks with your sandals?
I don't live in Seattle.
Thank God.
I don't wear sandals. I would wear socks with them because somebody's going to tell me how to wear my slippers or whatever, sandals. I'm glad you guys are two sides of that because I remember getting into concealed carry because remember, I'm old enough to remember being around guns my entire life. The idea of carrying a gun didn't even come into my head until, well, okay, I guess technically when I was in the Army, yes, I understood that I was going to be able to carry a gun, but you don't like, as soon as you put any thought at all into being in the military of any branch, you realize that you get issued a gun occasionally for when you need it. Most of the time it lives in some locker if you even have a gun assigned to you. So it's not like being in the military is anywhere near having a gun for 99% of the people in the military. And even the people with the guns, I mean, they get them issued to them when they need them and then they don't have them because there's just property that is unnecessarily attached to you and nobody wants to have a bunch of obligation ever. So anyway, so you don't really necessarily have this carrying a gun around. And I had no awareness that that could even be a thing all the way up to and through the LA riots. So Rodney King, LA riots. We were talking before about the Walmart walk and people being into guns. I can remember pre-Y2K, I believe it was what, 92, 94? I remember when Rodney King and all that happened. I think it was 92. Was it 94? Shit, can't remember anymore. It's a long time ago.
91.
Okay, so it might have been the 92 riots or some shit. So, but anyway, not Rodney King, minding his business, driving around somewhere. He did something. I imagine he got pulled over. Basically, his cops beat the shit out of him on the side of the road. Somebody had a video camera at the time, a VHS video camera. This was not a cell phone. You know, this was like the craziest of circumstances where somebody had this giant thing on their shoulder and it was charged and there was cassette tape in it and they were filming because you didn't just turn that thing on when you felt like it. You had to get it all ready. And then they got film of this many cops kicking the shit out of this guy. Started a tension started a riot. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. Tension started altercation in LA, and then the media basically enabled, fostered, exploited, fanned the flames of, created, and exploited, like profited on, still use it to this day as a weapon against everyone, gun owners, everyone in the community there in LA. It was an atrocity. Back in those days, you could only watch television. They owned the television, and they decided that they're going to show you everything that's happening in California for the first time, breaking all the rules. I don't know. Smeggy's old enough to remember this. If I remember right, that's how it went. Like, you know what? Normally, we don't like to show you shit live because it can be, who knows what the consequences are. This time, we're just going to show it to you live. And what were the consequences? Bad people could literally see where the police were, could literally make the decision to go outside and be bad. Turned into a giant riot. Billions of dollars, I don't know how many people, right? And that was one of the many. Let's not act like this happens occasionally or it just started happening. One of the many times when a situation was used, exploited by others to whatever, make money, sell stuff, get people upset at each other, divide, bring together, help, aid. Let's not forget that even though the media was trying as much as they could to divide, destroy, and provide access for evil, in that time when that guy got his ass pulled out of a truck, he pulled up to the intersection inadvertently, not understanding there was a fucking riot going on, got pulled out of his truck, the wrong color, got the living fucking crap, almost died, getting the shit kicked out of him by rioters. A dude saw that happening on TV, live in front of his own house, went outside, stopped the assholes from trying to kill this trying to kill this man who was being killed, took him to the hospital and saved his fucking life. So as much as the media wanted chaos and destruction, they also aided in humanity and positivity. So I don't want to get too wrapped up on the riots, but anyway, the riots were one of many that I've experienced, times when gun sales went through the fucking roof. How'd that have to do with the assault weapons ban? Man, I wish I had time to go back and ask people like Jeff Knox, who was in here earlier, if he can recollect. I think he's the same age as me, so he's paid way more attention in his life than I have. So that's a lot of missing links there. But anyway, we've got
issues that have caused surges in gun sales, interest in guns out of nowhere, brought people into the gun community, and whatever, out of fear, out of concern of, I can't get this tomorrow, I need this because there's going to be something. There was, oh, you're talking about that song, huh? Who the hell is that?
You know what? But as soon as I see that comment, I can hear the music. I'm like, oh yeah, I should have known it was 92.
Was a riot on the streets. Tell me, where were you? Right.
You were at home watching your TV while I was participating in some anarchy.
Yeah, I can't think of who it was. So I like that. I like that group. So Kingpin's leaving. What got me started on that rant about the fucking riots? Anyway, I was saying the riots were a big thing because they got everybody to buy a bunch of guns back in the 90s or whatever. So I guess it was 92. So thanks. And also keeps it in our because of that lyric, it'll keep it in our, what is that, lexicon? I don't know what the fuck it's called. It'll keep it in our vocabulary at least for a little while. Well, some of us who can remember Sublime, thank you. And Sublime lyrics were. Okay, I guess what I think I started that whole rant on, and it's every second matter. Somebody shows up to hear a bunch of fucking directions or instructions, because if you did, you're in the wrong place. What is all this about? Solo layout. Oh, I never noticed there was buttons on our dudes in here. I can do that. Okay, so anyway, I think what I was figuring out was that you guys were kind of on both sides. How light it is out there. How can it be so light? You guys were sort of on the, I don't want to say polar, but on two ends of the opinion on, well, I mean, you not like you live there, but you brought up two ends of the opinion on dressing as an ambassador, I guess, for 2A, and then, you know, living your life and letting people deal with their issues if they have a problem with the way you're living your life, right? Which I think are both valid. But I guess what I was getting at is I've been around for a while, and I guess whenever I thought about the riots back then, it made me think of one of the first times pre Y2K that I had sort of started to discover these cycles, these like things that get us concerned, and then we start buying guns, and then boom, there's a bunch of new gun owners. Another one here in Arizona was the concealed carry, getting concealed carry. I guess another one would have been in 2010, and that would have been in the 80s. Was it in the 80s or in the 90s maybe in Arizona? But then in the 2010, we got constitutional carry, and that brought a bunch of new concealed carriers here to Arizona, you know, for locally, I guess, you know, regionally or whatever in Arizona. So I've experienced quite a few of these cycles, I keep calling them, or times when bunches of new gun owners come on or whatever. And I guess I was getting it at the beginning when I first got into gun, like I say, I can't really say when I got into guns. When I started being aware of these cycles, it was at the gun shows that I noticed it. Like gun shows changed. Like, and at first I just thought gun shows were changing, right? And then first you don't even know there's a change. You just know that gun shows are different, but hey, they don't ever go back. So I guess they've changed, right? And then they change again, and you're like, what the hell? Gun shows are changing all the damn time. I can't really ever get used to them. They keep changing all the time. So I guess I'll get used to them changing all the time. After a couple of more changes or whatever, changes in direction, you start to think, wow, these changes coincide with all the news. Like, holy crap, the politics makes these things change or coincides with the change, right? So I guess that's where I was getting at. I've been around long enough that when I first got interested in this stuff, I started to get interested in the training and the idea that you could get better and get wiser and get way more effective with a firearm in so many different ways. I mean, skill set, awareness, I mean, mechanically, skills, shooting wise, like marksmanship wise, there's a million ways you can get more proficient at firearms manipulation or ownership or anything. So, taking these different trains, learning about all that stuff was super interesting. And at the time, this is early 2000s, 1990s, I guess. At this time, the general consensus is there's so few gun owners, nothing's guaranteed. No one saw the future with 50 states with concealed carry, right? There was no guaranteed nothing. You are an ambassador for guns, and you better be an ambassador for guns. And there was very little room for you aren't carrying the line. Like you would not have open carried back in the day without getting shouted at by a real NRA, let's say, gun owner guy about you looking like a slob or you don't look like you're paying enough attention or whatever, just because there was so few people. And more than likely, it would have been like one cop dressing down another cop or something, because there was so few people carrying. But then as more and more people started carrying, we're humans and we're free and we're individuals. So as more and more people started carrying, competent people started saying, you're not going to tell me what the fuck to wear or dress or whatever, right? And that's where I think I started to see, oh, there is two sides of this. Like there's not like there's right and there's wrong. There's like people's opinion and then other people's opinion and then the real life and then everything in between, every one of those things, right? So it probably took me a while of me personally I just really got interested in training, the types of training and the instructors, and then students are interesting too. So I really got into training and instruction there during the early 2000s. And somewhere in there, I realized that I just said, there is no way. There are just ways. And there are people that have a decent thought out, strong way. And there's people that have goofy ass ideas and 9mm ways, metric ways, they're weak and don't work. They just look good on the surface. They're all flash. There's everything in between. So at some point I quit acting quit equating everything with perfection or some variation off perfection. Instead, just looked at them all in a big spectrum. There's green and blue, and except for red, which is the shittiest color nobody likes, all colors are equal, right? Like it don't matter if something's made out of blue or green or yellow. They're just different colors. It's, so same kind of thing with what?
I said, what about orange?
Orange is a super valid color because you can be substituted for shitty red, but it's an awesome, visible color. Plus, it has a history in the gun ownership and Second Amendment when they came after gun owners for being hunters. And because there was a perception, I believe a manipulated misperception that gun owners were unsafe or that there were accidents with hunting, a proactive effort by the industry to get hunters to start wearing orange, helped turn what could have been persecution and the end of our rights. It helped change that course to be, hey, gun owners can be proactive. We can also take this to the extreme and beat them at their own game and become the most active, the most important element of conservation, so that hunters are in fact not just strategically important because they provide the herd reduction population control element, but also their contribution to the general funds and whatnot through their purchases of ammo and the unfair taxes and bullshit, create funding for conservation. And beyond that, their voluntary action, their contributions above and beyond any enforced taxes, but their voluntary contributions to resource preservation and management has made it so that effectively they can never go after hunting. In fact, to this day, every anti-gun, anti-right son of a bitch politician has to say, we're not coming after your hunting guns. Is that an accident? No, it's because of the fucking color orange. So yeah, orange is a great color and red can go fuck itself. But anyway, I was getting that after years and years and years of figuring it out. There is no ambassador to guns that's so good, because the guy who thinks he is a dingus, and he is the guy wearing sandals and white shorts or white socks going up to his shorts, and he's got a fanny pack and a photographer's vest and an NRA hat and a porn mustache, and he's an asshole, and he tells girls to buy revolvers, and he doesn't like something that you like, and blah, blah, blah. But you know what I'm saying? There's people that have good intention, but I'm also, which was barbecue's position, but then there's also the we're individuals and we're free, and that would be G23's position. So that was my long ass blowhard way of wasting an hour to say, yeah, that's cool to have both positions. You're both wrong, but you're also both right. Makojo says,
red American Eskimo that had a nose like that. What are we talking about? That white dog over there? That's a
Yeah, I
Big
think
Mellow?
so.
Talking about this other brown dog.
Oh, I don't know. Let's look at this guy's nose. The phone's being weird, but is this the American Eskimo nose?
I don't know.
Come on.
Your phone in a child's way instead of like an adult. Flip it around so we can actually see this nose. Right now we're seeing a narrow version of the nose.
This is the size stick that I'm throwing, just for the reference.
'Cause you're
He's
cheap.
obsessed.
'Cause you're cheap. Can't even afford
No,
a
it's because it
piece of-
starts out big and he breaks it in half a million times, and this is all I got left. And I have to go find new ones. But anyways, this dog is pro Second Amendment. I have pictures of him with a hat that says "Repeal the NFA."
Awesome.
I have pictures with my cat on a 12 gauge.
That's just irresponsible. I think cats can only handle 28 gauge. Maybe a 20 gauge if it's one of those really big cats.
If anybody has a cat that has a 28 gauge and they want to get rid of the cats and the 28 gauge comes with the cat, I will adopt that cat. Mainly just because I want a 28 gauge.
They're like, I hate cats, but I want a 28, so.
No, I don't mind them. I really don't need a cat right now. However, if it came with a 28 gauge, I'm getting that kitty.
The way I look at it, cats are roommates. Dogs are your best friends. Cats are things that happen to live in the same house as you.
This is dog just hanging out near, adjacent to the garden.
Yeah, he really just chills when we're in the backyard. He goes nuts at the dog park, but in the backyard, he's normally just sits around and eats grass or whatever.
All right. What if you pack that dog a lunch, put him on a bus, and then send him to Tucson, and he'll hang out with Milo for a little bit? Get some
Well, I'll see what I can do. We will have a fluff off eventually.
Back in the olden days when I was a little kid, if your parents were divorced and they were like, hey, you got to go to the other parent, they would just put you on a plane alone. And then they'd be like, hey, watch this kid who's alone. And they'd be like, all right. And you would just be a kid alone on an airplane. So it's that kind of situation, except a little puppy. All right, well, so we got 8 people out there, but in the last, I don't know, 81% of the minutes, no one said nothing. So I'm guessing it's over. Since no one else showed up today, I'm guessing nobody else is going to show up. We had Charles Heller show up at the actual time this was supposed to start. And then I realized that I was like literally corking locked and loaded. So I pushed this thing back a couple of times to let them finish at their leisure. During that time, Jeff Knox came in. We chatted a bit with him and Charles off air, which is kind of fun. They both live in Arizona here. We chatted about Arizona stuff. And then I think G23 was the first to jump in, hung out for a bit. Everybody kind of left because the show started, I guess, technically 90 minutes after I said it was gonna. But then we went live here for the last almost 2 hours. And again, this is not an attempt to offer directions or instructions, instead an opportunity to talk about the rights that are protected by that Second Amendment. I'll offer one more time if anybody else out there wants to jump in or chat about something. You're in the comments or the text chat out there, feel free to use your wiggles, use your fingers, wiggle your thumb over the screen or over the keyboard, and that'll make words happen that we can read. Or you guys here in the chat have anything else you want to bring up? Otherwise, we'll start wrapping it up.
Yeah, I got something, G.
Great.
Before we do wrap up, anybody either out in the text chat or on the panel been thinking of any new ways to possibly bring awareness for Every Second Matters?
Oh, I thought you were going to say you're going to send out.
What was that, G?
Every Second Matters. If you would have just left it at bring awareness, or would have said awareness for 2A.
Oh, in general. I mean, even just for 2A.
I got answers for 2A, but since you said you qualified it with every second matters, that is more interesting for this conversation. So if anybody wants to answer that one, I'll save mine.
And say, I know I have one if nobody else wants to lead off. And say, because for a couple months now, I've been kicking around the idea of getting twin pair of single action Colt replicas and getting a Western style leather gun belt, and on Every Second Matters open carrying those.
So, again, I'm going to play devil's advocate. How is that changing the perception of Every Second Matters and bringing more awareness to it?
Well, it's not to change the perception or anything. It's just to try and draw more attention. And obviously, me open carrying every day, like I said, I get zero interactions. The one at Walmart last month was literally because some crazy dude showed up, and I was just right place at the wrong time. In this sense, perhaps if I'm carrying two guns and hey, it's a cowboy style rig and things like that, perhaps maybe people will be a bit more apt to approach me, maybe start up a conversation. Hey, those are really nice guns, or man, that's a really neat gun belt. Where'd you get that? Or hey, you think you're a cowboy? Who knows what? But because I'm always hoping to start up a conversation somehow. So I'm hoping that doing that might draw just a little bit more attention.
Interesting. How about wearing a shirt that says, "Ask me what more you can do to protect our rights on the Second Amendment"?
Does somebody make that shirt already?
I don't think so.
Let's say, because if somebody made that shirt, point me in the direction, and I would wear the crap out of that. Because I would wear it probably at least once a week. But like my Every Second Matter shirts, I still wear those about once a week. But that means I have to go find a place to make the shirt, stuff like that. And not that I wouldn't want to do that. It's just one of those things where I'm probably going to get to it in another 6, maybe 8 months. And I'm more likely to end up buying 2 new Colt single action replicas before that.
Missed something because I was trying to show Smeggy, my dog, over here. Whenever the camera's not on her, she's sitting here with some goofy looking grin on her face when she's panting, and it looks like she's smiling. Then as soon as I turn the camera on, she looks like she's all miserable. I'm like, what, you got me in prison? So it didn't work. But I glitched, or at least I audio hiccuped or whatever, jumping back and forth between the phone. So as far as wearing them, I think it's the same as a parade or something. When there's like a float going by that's all gussied up or all decorated, I guess depending on the type of parade. But when there's something that's elaborate and put on, like going all out or whatever, that says something. I mean, it definitely pushes a message out there. Beyond the here's my normal thing and I'm wearing it and making you aware of it. It's the, hey, I'm making you aware of something that has more to it or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I'm not gonna be able to tell you yes or no as much as I can see the validity in it. But I don't think that it's necessarily like, again, there's no answer, right? So it's not like, oh yeah, that'll do it and then we're done. But yeah, I mean, why not? I don't think anyone's done anything. I don't want to say that. I think that one of the dudes that lives in the Pacific Northwest, that used to be super active in this stuff, I think that he was into single action stuff, and I think he may have done something, not a double rig, but done something. But it may have been more of like, I do stuff about Every Second Matters around my Action Cowboy or whatever it's called group of friends, right? So I don't know if it was whatever. Now you go around with a cowboy hat all the time anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's sort of like, it would be like you're just doing it on the second only, or on the second you would say about it, but you would also be doing it at other times. You'd also be open carrying that.
I would probably only carry the double rig like that on Every Second Matters.
So it would be like, oh, you're that guy. Like, that's that guy in town who wears the cowboy rig, or whatever they're going to call it, because who knows what other people are going to perceive it as. That's the guy who goes all out, or that's the guy who's too extreme, or that's the guy who's left-handed, or that's the guy that bought 9mm revolvers, right? Like, who knows what people are going to say about you. But if you did it every day, then it would be like, that's the weird guy who does something different on one day, but he's weird every day. Or it would be like, that's the guy, and on the second he goes all out, and then people might go, why, right? So
Yep.
I think if you are gonna do it knowing, then at least you're doing it with an intention. Now, is it going to work or is it going to fail? Who the hell knows? Since it's never been done before, it might be the thing that solves 2A. It might be the thing that gets it across to Pelosi that she's a fucking idiot. She could quit doing this already. She's going to go make the jugular razor blade stroke that needs to happen so that Feinstein can never put an assault weapons ban again. And then we all owe it to barbecue for putting on a double rig. And it was obvious and it was there all the time and nobody did it. So there's nothing saying that isn't going to happen. It probably will happen slowly, but could happen really fast. What's going on with this flag over here? You got your thing backwards, or you got a giant flag in a building?
You tell me if that's properly displayed. I took a picture of me at a local museum with that in my background. Yes, sir.
Here's what happens. Almost 100%. If it's in a museum, it's hung correctly. However, they hung it in the middle of a freestanding place, obviously, because you're standing there. So that means it's hanging from the ceiling of someplace. It's giant. And the way that you display a flag in that circumstance is with the Union, the blue part, to the north. Stupid thing, because they had to do something, because somebody's going to throw a flag in the middle of a giant room. So there's got to be some rule, and it's point that thing north, I believe, because I would never do it. Because of this, you can't know, right? You're just a human being underneath of your own flag, and you assume because you're in a building that's museum that it's legit. So you're going to take a picture like that, not knowing that the Union should always be on the left, and it looks weird to people that are used to seeing it on the left. So no, you didn't do nothing wrong. You just took a picture. But the reason I said that is if it was against a wall, if that was hung from a wall, it would be backwards. The Union should be on the top left, not the top right. When the flag is in that particular orientation, it's typically seen draped over the coffin of a dead soldier, more than likely. But it can also be other politicians and shitheads that don't deserve it. Sometimes a politician deserves it. But anyway, that's the reason I ask, is because it looks as though you're doing a weird face on top of a soldier's coffin. And I know that it's not what you're doing or trying to portray. So that's the reason I brought it up. Because it's Every Second Matters, and you're adult enough to know that I'm not picking on you. I'm trying to explain something that very few people give a shit about, but those that do would give a shit about it.
I was gonna say, well, I'm almost wondering when I saw it, is it because, like, how sometimes when you take a picture, like the camera flips things?
That's what I figured too.
That's like that. It actually is on the left-hand side, but it looks like it's on the right-hand side of the picture.
Exactly, and that happens all the time. And people do have their flags right, don't realize that their weird back and forth selfie camera does that sometimes. But in this case, you could see the building. You could see what the wall of windows behind it. So I knew immediately it was just hanging in it would be like if it was hanging in an aircraft carrier, or not aircraft carrier, aircraft hangar, right? Or like a auditorium. But, huh?
Oh, okay. Well, anyways.
All right, thanks for jumping in. So DJ just jumped in. Barbecue had brought up the idea of the things, and I just interrupted her because I was sure that whatever DJ was just intentionally doing that. So I think I was saying my piece. I don't know if DJ had something to say about Barbecue's idea of the dual single shot or single action rig.
I'm sorry, I've come in a little bit late and unprepared. Sometimes naps happen. But is he talking about wearing normalizing through wearing like a Western rig?
We're on page 32 of the script.
Yeah, just trying to catch up here. If we're talking about wearing a rig that might normalize, that was something we were talking about the other night. Am I on the right page at least?
Yeah, you and I've discussed it a couple times. It's just, and I'm not even talking about normalized because I don't think that would be normal. You don't see people walking around with a Western style rig these days.
Now, here in Arizona, I think people would go like, he must be going to something like a movie or a thing or whatever.
Like a cosplay.
Yeah, like they're not really going to pay it, but wherever you're at in Pennsylvania, then it's like, oh, people are going to do a double take. They're not going to be like, right? They're going to be more like, hey, and then poke a kid and go, look it, right? Or like,
exactly,
poke grandma and go, hey, look at this guy.
Well, actually, G, to take it from there, one of the things that Barbecue and I had talked about was in the normalization aspect that, for instance, that a double Western drop holster with a single action in them. If the child were to say, hey, look at that, you're more likely to get a response because they've seen it in a Western. There's a greater cultural context for that particular carry that they might allow a younger generation to ask those questions and get answers to them rather than, you come this way now, sort of thing. So normalizing in that aspect, I thought it was a pretty sound idea. And here on the Great Plains, it's merely an echo that you don't hear repeated that often. It'd work, I think.
Brought up something. Well, I'm rude. I'm gonna pull the host card and be rude because you just brought up something. But something really interesting there as far as generationally. So Jeff Knox jumped back in. Thanks for joining us. And I'd alluded that we were talking offline, and something that I'd been wanting to chat with Jeff online at some point about is this generational, whatever I keep calling them, cycles or waves of fight that we've had to deal with. But that idea of the generational mores, I don't know if I'm using the right word there, but whatever our grandparents thought was appropriate, right, wrong, should be done, didn't do, whatever, tried to push on us as grandkids, and then our parents and whatever our parents kept right, like that is different than what our grandchildren are going to do or are, whatever they are old, right? So when we talk about, and Jeff, we're kind of spinning off of Guns and Barbecue, this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Guns and Barbecue had brought up the concept of wearing a dual 6-shooter, a dual old Colt gun rig on the 2nd of each month as a way to like wear his cowboy hat and his dual rig and
Buscadero rig.
But he's up in Pennsylvania, so it'd be a little bit different than down here. Anyway, so I was suggesting that what might be considered inappropriate to my parents or my grandparents in that specific scenario isn't at all, I think that's what DJ was saying, isn't at all what our grandparents are or our grandchildren are gonna think is appropriate or should be appropriate. And if we just assume what our grandparents thought was right and wrong, and we go off of that premise, then that is the future. So if we let the youngins come up with their own opinion of it by doing something like what Guns Barbecue is talking about, then we give the opportunity to the next to discern if that's inappropriate or not. And we can then take action. If it's inappropriate, let's do something. If it's appropriate, let's lean into it.
Absolutely fair. I saw it as a logical extension of what's already culturally appropriate. And so to spin those words that way, we're not appropriating something from like a subculture, really. It just seems that way maybe in the modern context. Because though we don't roam the streets, there are not tumbleweeds rolling across downtown Omaha and people facing off at high noon. But the greater context, if we just think about how John Wayne might not be passing to another generation, but most people are going to think cowboy and picture that. And to me, that's an incredibly patriotic cultural image. The Duke is an incredibly valuable image of so much about who we
Go
I
ahead.
hear what you're saying, but you're in the same time you're making the point, you're killing your point because I'm not aware of John Wayne ever wearing a dual rig. He only ever wore one gun, and that was sort of his thing.
Okay.
But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. But I'm going to also throw in there, let's not forget real life. And although there are no maple trees laying around waiting to be sapped or, big ass elms that need to be downed, we got a hell of a lot of lumberjacks running around. So there's potential, there's all kinds of oldie stuff that's cool again. And when we look at general trends, we go from conservative to hippie to conservative to hippie and conservative to hippie. And now it's getting a little weird, but we've been pretty hippie for a minute here, including crazy riots, hatred of the government and whatnot. When we go back to that conservatives trip, the conservative, when we go from
When the pendulum swings back.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, then I could see that double rig, maybe not in the same authenticity as our grandparents who grew up in it and whatever, but some weird perverted version, emulation of it, not perverted, but, perverted in the fact that it's not true, but, some new version that has their own meanings for the next generations. I could totally see guns come up. And again, I was saying, what's to stop barbecue from having put his finger on the actual thing that needed to get through to Pelosi, which gets through to Feinstein, which ends all gun, push. And it could be something as simple as, oh, Grandpa wouldn't have wanted me to do this. Thanks, Guns and Barbecue, for reminding me that Grandpa thinks I'm an asshole, right? So anyway.
I want to throw in here, there was a guy that used to come to our VCDL meetings when I lived in Virginia. I think that he was from northern Richmond area, but I'm not sure. We were meeting in just outside DC, and this guy, he was an African American of smaller stature, not much smaller than me, but not a big guy at all. And he liked the Western motif. He wore a buckskin tan cowboy hat and a vest and a tie-down rig on his right side. And that was his EDC back, what was that? Probably 2003, 2005. And I'm not sure if it was the same guy, but there was a shooting at a grocery store. I'm thinking it was, again, North Richmond. The guy just walked in, shot in the air, and I believe shot the owner of the store once in the stomach and spun around and started yelling at people. And a black gentleman with a single action Colt open carry drew it and shot him. I might be combining a couple of stories, but he was standing in line to pay for something and turned around and quick drawed and shot the guy dead in front of the store. Whatever trips your trigger, as long as you're peacefully going about your business, maybe it's a conversation starter, maybe somebody's snickering at you from behind, but there's, if it makes you happy, your lived reality, well, there you go.
I agree. And well, again, there's all kinds of potential theories of what could happen. But again, if the 14th richest dude on the planet is paying the chick from Monsanto to find stuff like that and use it against us, if it was happening as doomed and gloom, or as often as the people that think it could happen, we'd know it.
Right. And one of the things, though, that I do want to throw in here, I've open carried a lot. My open carry holster is an inside the waistband summer special, and so it has no security on it at all except my belt and my body. And I don't recommend, if you're going to open carry, I strongly encourage you to either have a rig like that is very tight into your body, and that you can use your body to keep it from being taken from you, or be sure that it's a security rig, because I just watched a video the other day of a guy, he's standing in line at a place waiting to pay, and a couple of kids walked in. They obviously had seen him and had cased it, and they walked in the door and just walked right up behind him, took the gun away from him, and ran out the door. Pulled it out of his holster and ran. So if you're going to open carry, have some security there.
I know exactly the video you're talking about. I suspect a lot of people do because those videos go around. So keep in mind, if there was a lot of them, Monsanto lady would be using them because her only job is to make more money off of what's his face, the 14th richest person on this planet right now. This is a rock that goes around a sun. There's people on it, and there's 14 of them that have more money than the guy who hates our rights, right? That guy is paying the chick that decided to leave Monsanto to work for this guy. She's got all the reason in the world to use every resource at her thing. And there's that one video going around. So I just want to throw out there that here's a secret that you're going to get from a gun shop. I don't know what to call myself, a volunteer. Like I hung out at a gun shop because I was doing the YouTube channel and I didn't really need to get paid. I was useful, but I wasn't necessary. And, so I got to be the fly on the wall. I wasn't like constantly doing any of the actual jobs that you have to do at a gun shop. I just got to do all the fun stuff at a gun shop, and they didn't really seem to mind. So, I got to experience a lot of gun shop stuff without any of the negative stuff. So I don't want to act like I'm some sort of a gun shop guy, but I can tell you with that perspective of not having to pay attention to the security, for example, or the costs of doing business or any other stuff that you have to deal with as part of a gun shop. I got to just deal with the frosty icing and the fun stuff. I got to see people come in. And I care about more than just what gun they're going to buy. I enjoy seeing people come into our community and come into the door of that store and experience their community, our community, for that couple of first times. Often they'd go to the gun show, be confused, and go to the guy who owns the shop. Me. I don't just hang out at any other gun shop. I hung out at a gun shop with a dude who is one of the coolest people I've ever met on this planet. And that guy enjoyed bringing people into the mix, into the community. And he sold mostly guns. He wasn't there to sell you a holster or anything else. In fact, he went out of business eventually because he refused to sell the garbage, the repetitive, useless crap that has good markup. Instead, he just enjoyed bringing people into the community. He was a retired guy when he started the whole thing. He was doing it as an act of passion and interest and for future generations. And I enjoyed that. So I got to see people who got to a little bit of introduction, perhaps with Bob or one of the guys from the gun shows, came into the store as like the first time in a pool that they got to hold on to the railing or one of those flotation devices. So they were still wide-eyed and coughing a little bit because they swallowed a lot of water with all this gun stuff. But we were the first people to give them a little attention and give them a little answers to their questions. So they would often come in with an Uncle Mike's holster on a shitty belt. And I swear to shit, if you think of anything from this show, realize that every gun owner starts with a shitty belt and a Uncle Mike's holster. So the first time you use a shitty holster and a shitty belt as an example, you've just shit on everybody at that stage. And I can't implore you enough that we are not gun owners and not gun owners. We are people who have yet not got into guns or hate guns, right? People that we're not. Then there's people that are interested or are aware of guns. And then there's people who have just bought a gun or they're just thinking about it. They just got into guns. Now we're into the realm of us, right? Except we're not yet, because those are the people that just thought about it. I doubt any of them people are watching this show. Then you get people who've bought a few guns and have sat around for a while with their guns and they enjoy them. That's all of you people. Then you get people that have sat around with their guns and they've been fucked with, and they've been pissed, been screwed around with. They've been used as a puppet over and over and over. Those people leave or get pissed and fight harder. There's very few of them that get pissed and fight harder. Most of those people leave. They get frustrated and they decide there's nothing that they can do, that it's going to happen or it's not, and they leave. And then there's the exploiters, the people that take advantage of those people who have not yet left and who are still wide-eyed and have interest in pursuing things that are important to them. And they take that money and they are there consistently through it. And that's one of the reasons that the people who get frustrated leave, is because they see that that's where it ends. So it doesn't have to end there. We can have more and more types of gun owners. So anyway, I want to continue to explain that, because those people that are wearing the shitty holsters and that we like to mock are just us a minute ago. And there's people that want to encourage you to mock them,
because that they know that fatigues the metal and that you will then leave and that they will prey on the next. It's not the next guy or girl who buys a holster. It's the next generation, for crying out loud. You think these exploiters who make millions of dollars on our industry by playing show and tell or by selling you bullshit that you don't need, you think those people want to inherit nothing to their children? They are telling their children how to manipulate the systems, the masses, the human beings to do exactly what they did, to keep the house or the mansion or the ranch or whatever the fuck shit they're putting their money into, right? That isn't the DC project. That isn't the ninth annual Girl in a Gun conference where 400 chicks got together in Colorado. I can guarantee you every single millionaire isn't even aware of that. If they are, they're not paying attention to it on their channel. That's how I know that those exploiters at the end of the chain they look forward to the fact when you get discouraged and leave, because now they can say the same fucking shit. We get mad at Feinstein and Pelosi for bringing the same old boilerplate out, get mad at the millionaires who bring out the same bullshit blather to say to new gun owners to get them to throw a couple of bucks at whatever, or to stay in the game for another months, because they know that the next time something happens, we're going to have a whole new realm of people. Anyway, I don't want to keep harping on that, but I'm going to keep harping on it because that's the only thing I'll have to harp on. Jeff, do you remember the Walmart walk?
No.
Oh, dang it. So you don't remember in 2015, I didn't really chat with you in 2015, but in 2015 with the Obama executive actions and the resistance to that, obviously a lot of new gun owners brought on board. We had a shortage of AR receivers because of that, but we also had some issues with ammunition factories and shortages based on availability of materials, raw materials, and one of the factories burned down, so there was just no production. So all these things kind of hit us at the same time in 2015, and we had a lot of new gun owners. Similar to what we have today. I was saying similar to what we had in 92 with the riots, similar to what we had perhaps a little bit in the end of the assault weapons ban, but probably in 94 with the assault weapons ban. You know, there's always a reaction in the industry, individuals in the community purchasing based off of fear of not being able to obtain or whatever, security,
Right.
concern. So there's these different waves. And in the 2015 wave, because YouTube had become sort of a big thing and people had the combined shared experience of YouTube, giant channels and big things and videos that went viral and that kind of thing. So the Walmart walk was the concept of, as your first CCW experience, which many people were experiencing in 2015 for the first time, going around and in a Walmart for your first time in public with your CCW. And then that way, it was sort of like the ice bucket challenge or something. It was like a thing that people were doing so that they could all contribute to a sort of a happening and then share their experience. And then all the live conversations like this one that were happening just organically almost every day back then. There was a different person doing a different show. People would say, hey, I did my Walmart walk and I posted my video. And most of the time it was, because this is a long time ago now, this was before people were as savvy. Most people weren't trying to be some sort of bullshit television channel or try to exploit their friends, selling them garbage. So most people were just truly using YouTube as a way to share information or whatever. So people weren't like manipulative and whatever. So not very many people were like experts at doing it, but they basically would kind of show themselves in the car, maybe show their gun in their gut or in their, most of the time people weren't carrying appendix back then. It wasn't cool yet. So they'd show their like inside the waistband or something before they went in. Remember, these are new carriers, so they were pretty paranoid. Then they would go do their walk and then they'd come back and be in their car again and go, okay, that was pretty cool. Okay, I went to the floral section and I thought I was going to fall out, but it was just my keys and, that kind of thing. And it was fun because everyone was experiencing it. And it was sort of a bonding / experience because the tech was new and the experience was new and everybody was growing. Anyway, I guess I was asking you because there's not that many people. That was 2015. There's been times where we've had these big things that happen. And I think that's an indication. You're the exception to the rule, but nobody else in this whole chat at the time, there was a couple of people listening too. No one knew what a Walmart walk was. And since it was such a well-known, such a like established traditional, whatever, such a thing at the time, to know that no one today knows what it is, it means that we do cycle through like our complete, it's sort of like when they talk about the rich, they act like there's these 16 rich people that are just rich all the time. They were born rich, they stay rich, everybody dies and they leave the rich to their children. When in reality, in this free country, people are poor often get rich and then get poor again, or vice versa. They're rich and they get poor and they get rich again, or maybe one and they go and they stay there. But there are some generational rich families, but very often people go up and down. Same thing with all this stuff, right? People get interested and they lose their interest. They get active. They quit being active.
Yeah, I don't think that I was paying a whole lot of attention to YouTube in 15. I'm
But you get the
fairly
concept
new
of
to
that,
the
like,
platform, but yeah.
But like that, there's, and I keep calling them. I mean, I don't even know who all, because unfortunately I keep discovering new people who are in this, who are exploiting this cycle. But there's, I guess I've been frustrated for a few years now that, like, how do we keep these people? How do we keep our activists? Like, you can't imagine how many people I've known since 2013 when we started both Every Second Matters and Gun Channels almost simultaneously, like within a few months of each other. It was both of those entities, let's call them, were built with the idea that the lack of, the apathy is building, like the lack of concern, a lack of grassroots movement is dissipating. Like, let's not let that happen. So we had a lot of people that were really active, and not active like this will help my business, or active like this will sell more t-shirts, or active like I'll get more views and be more famous and meet more people, or those stupid ass guilt, what's the word? Greedy ambitions. It was, how do we stop this from happening so that our kids can just enjoy, right? How can we stop this from happening so that it comes off the table? And we lost those people. Shit. I mean, holy crap, we've lost those people. And I always thought, how do we stop losing these people so that we have more resource and so that we can gain, so that we can start to build and accumulate, I guess is the word I'm looking for, so that we don't keep repeating the same thing over and over again. I've been saying for a while now that the anti-gun side has used our reactions as a mechanism. They understand what we're capable of and what we do. And there's complicity. There's people on our side who allow us to do the same fucking thing over and over. So we're literally a mechanism. And as I started to see that and started to get frustrated that we're losing people, I've had the ability to reach out to the key players. And once I decided to start reaching out to those key players and asking the specific question, how do we keep retention? I started to get the reply. There's no need for retention. We make more money when we don't retain. They didn't finish the sentence there, but they said there's no need for retention, with the implication of, if we keep the people around, we have to do new stuff. If we don't keep people around, we get to just say the same thing every 10 years or every 5 years or every 3 years, depending on how soon you get discouraged and the next people come and sit down in your seat. So, the question is, when are people going to realize when they sat down in a warm seat, they didn't have a hot fucking towel sitting there for you? That's the ass of the person that got frustrated and left before you, right? What the fuck are they about to tell you that's going to make you leave at some point? And why do they keep saying that same shit over and over? I guess that was my thing. I don't know if there's an answer to that, but I'm wondering, I guess, if you see that or if I'm just perceiving it because I'm crazy or nuts or angry or something. I guess I was asking Jeff because you've been around for a while. These guys haven't been around.
What was the question?
Whether or not, if you see the same cycle that I'm seeing, that there's people that are happy to allow the experienced activists to leave out of frustration. In fact, they'd rather them leave out of frustration so that they can simply preach the same old freaking same thing every so often and make money.
Look at the prominent gun rights organization with the slick magazines that does the giveaways and the sweepstakes for membership drives, and then once they get the guy's name on the rolls, it's every 2 weeks he's got a letter asking him for money coming in, and he eventually goes away because that just drives him crazy. There's no seeking to retain. There's no seeking to give value. It's, hey, you can win a Jeep. Just sign up, send your $35 and join us. And there you go. That's, and they're not the only ones that do that kind of thing. And
I was just going to say, like, you're definitely making one example that could actually apply to at least 2 or 3 of them, but it's
Oh
actually
yeah, absolutely.
all of them to some extent, but most of them to that extent. I would think.
Yeah, all of
Only-
them but me.
Well, I don't consider you that. You
it's
don't get an email from the Firearms Coalition telling you, the sky's falling every
the wine
once.
club or the sky's falling or the Nancy Pelosi's in a secret meeting with Mike Bloomberg and they're going to release the Kraken tomorrow if you don't send us money today. It's my dream, as was my father's dream, has always been to win this freaking fight so we could go get a real job that actually pays and have a real life and spend time with our families and all of that kind of thing. And there's a lot of people in the movement that's not their objective. Their objective is to milk this cow for as long as she'll give milk.
And I don't want to, maybe the way, because it sounds like I hate everybody in the thing. I hate a couple of the worst exploiters, but because they are literally doing it that way. But I think it's more of like, well, if I pump this way, then I get water. So I'm going to keep pumping this way. I don't think it's like they have an evil intent as much as they just don't wake up and go, hey, wait a minute, if I pumped a little bit here and then put a hose on and then ask somebody else to pump now, then they grab a hose, all of a sudden we've got water where we need it and I don't have to keep walking out here to the pump. Like they're just not putting a little effort into thinking about what's next or leadership, and they're just thinking about, man, this pump, and like, how do I get another arm on the pump, or how do I get a better fulcrum on the pump? It's all about the damn pump because it started with the pump, but not just the pump.
Right, and unfortunately, that's the direction that we're human. We have needs, we have wants, and unless you're coming into this from a very principled, driven kind of position, then it really does make sense that, well, hey, I'm worth it. I'm devoting my time to this effort, and I deserve to prosper with it, and we'll keep. The thing that makes me mad is that all of these organizations tend to compete, and they don't need to compete. They act as if there's a finite pie, and anybody who's taking anything out of the pie is taking part of their pie. And that's not the case. The pie is 100 times larger than anybody has right now. And by cooperating, we could grow that pie and we could retain these people and we could bring more into the fold. This is one of the things that's going on right now with all of these new people that are coming into the shooting world for whatever reason. I remember years ago during the Obama administration, a guy on an airplane, and we got to chatting, and he somehow started telling me about how he had bought a Mossberg 500 because he was afraid he wouldn't be able to buy one soon. And there's a lot of people that go out and buy a gun because of that. And so now our job is to reach out to those people and say, hey, you want to go shooting? Do you want to learn a little bit more about that? Can I help you with that? Years ago, I worked for J&G Sales up in Prescott when I was in college, and it was not uncommon for a couple of guys from Embry-Riddle to come in. They're from someplace back east. They know nothing about guns. This is their first time into a gun shop, and they're looking at buying, a Thompson Auto Ordnance 1911.
That's because they've got a campus in Prescott, right? So they were at school from out of state and then came over to the gun shop, not aware of laws.
the high dollar school up the street. But at any rate, it was very common for me to not only try and steer these guys to a gun that they would enjoy and would last for them, and that they'd be able to shoot and safely, but I'm giving safety classes across the counter and trying to do it without offending anyone or making them feel like I'm talking down to them, and then would volunteer to, hey, I get off at 5. You want to go up to the gravel pit? We can shoot a little bit and show you the ropes on this guy and talk about it. And so I would be going up after work and doing training with these guys, and for me it was a lot of fun. And my big thing was I didn't want them shooting themselves or their buddies or the neighbor. I didn't want them having a bad experience. I wanted them coming back again. And it's an opportunity for me to make new friends. And so, it was, in my mind, a win-win-win to let's engage. Let's spend some time. Let me give you some pointers. Let's practice. Hey, do you know we shoot on Thursday nights? Come on out, that kind of thing. So it can be done, and people do it.
Well, the thing is, you've got the internet now, so you can have that same experience, and you can do that with people that don't have to be anywhere physically close to you or have any kind of business situation with them, right? You don't have to you can discover them through a conversation like this. In the text of the conversation, the Kojo could say, "Oh, hey, it's Winston. Let's meet up and have a chat or whatever," or then turn into a million different ways of doing that technologically. So I was going to ask what your motivation was, but you answered it. That's super interesting. As far as working for JG Sales, if y'all don't know, JG Sales are they an importer? But they're definitely a distributor. They're massive. And they, for a long time, the Shotgun News was a thing that, before the internet, there was things that kept the community together. And Shotgun News was one of the major things that kept the community together. The internet is a derivation. What we see on the internet today is an emulation electronically of Shotgun News and a couple other. Let's put it that way. So everything, like literally everything about Shotgun News was really cool. But so that's what J&G was. They're like a thing that was a mainstay, an ad that you would look at in Shotgun News. One of the reasons you picked up Shotgun News was for the J&G ad, at least a generation of us or more. But anyway,
16, 20 pages in every magazine.
It was like a catalog, every magazine. So, or every issue. So I'm not going to go on with too much more, other than to try to explain briefly there why I'm asking this, why that's an interesting story for all the people that don't even really know what a Walmart walk is. Imagine they don't understand the significance of that story. Is pretty neat. Let me ask this though: was J&G in the same building back then? What year are we talking? Like 1980s or something? Were they in the same building?
Yeah, same building. They're off the Miller Valley. It seems like maybe Joe had a different building when he first opened up, but
he couldn't have been, because he came from Montana, much smaller. So I'm assuming it had to grow into the building. But it's been around that long, though. It's not like
he was huge in Montana. He used to do his business model originally was like drop shipping. He had a huge catalog. Like, remember when the old Brownells catalogs were great, big, and fat?
Yeah.
Joe had
a
big, heavy catalog like that he didn't stock most of the things, but it was drop shipped from the manufacturer or whatever.
Pre-internet affiliate
sales. Oh yeah.
Amazon link. This was the Amazon link before the internet came around.
Yeah, back in the 70s.
One time talking about that, we had Clover jump in. Sorry to cut you off. Because I just know we have limited time. Clover jumped in here. This dude's literally one of the heroes of 2A. Y'all just don't even know it, because he can't talk about some of it, and he just doesn't talk about some of it, but he's doing all kinds of neat stuff. And he may want to talk to Jeff, so I'm just going to give it to you two to talk to for a minute here, unless one of you other people want to talk who are in here. But I'm going to shut up and let Clover take the direction. You want to introduce yourself, I guess, in case people don't know who you are.
Oh, well,
hey,
I would
Clover.
hope I would hope they do. Hey Jeff, what's happening? One of my favorite people to listen to. So I was just sitting back listening to Jeff. I could listen to Jeff for hours on end for whatever reason. But
and I can talk for hours on end too, so be careful.
I just got in and you'll see this was still going, thankfully, and wanted to jump on, tell everybody happy every second matters. I hope that you got some awareness out there. If you haven't got some awareness out there, then you've wherever you or live, whatever time zone, you still got a few hours. So get it done.
Yeah, the sun just went down out here.
Clover's got a couple of projects. One is that on Thursday, the Texas Senate decided to hear from the constituency, the citizens of Texas, about the real constitutional carry in Texas bill. There's actually a second distractional Senate bill that should be ended because it's a little distraction. But there was a concealed carry bill that came from the Texas House of Representatives, passed into the Texas Senate, if I understand correctly. And now the Texas Senate is going to vote on it, send it to the governor. This is the first time in history it's gotten this far, and they only do their government stuff every other year, so it doesn't progress very fast. So significant to some extent. On Thursday morning, they decided they didn't decide. The procedure was to listen to the state, and of course, that's an opportunity for the 14th richest person on this planet to take the person he hired from Monsanto and pay people to show up, right? So that means it's the obligation or the responsibility, or at least the only other people to prevent something like that from just being 100% paid for by the guy who pays the chick from Monsanto to take away our rights. Citizens have to show up, right? So the government said, let's open the bidding or whatever on slots. You're going to get 120 seconds each to talk about your position on constitutional carry in the state of Texas in 2021. So I guess 170 people signed up in the 2 hours window that they had to sign up, or is that whatever? So 170 people signed up. They each get 120 seconds. The long story, if there is a way to make that short, is Clover went live for 10 hours and basically marathoned it. It turns out that after the fact, the people that were there, the 170 people that were there, and because of all the theater, had to be all over the place and clutching everything and white weps and white bees and shit. So they're dealing with the chaos and horrible situation it has to be in the Texas Capitol for 10 hours in Austin. Many of them not loving Austin in the first place, being in the center of government of everything they don't like, for 10 hours so that they can speak for 2 minutes, not knowing if that has any effect on the future or not, but willing to be there and do it, right? And it turns out that Clover's 10-hour marathon thing that killed his channel stats, by the way. He's knowledgeable of how the internet works. It destroyed his channel from ever being viable to be like a fancy, nimble channel that sells you crap and gets you to buy shit you don't need. Like, he's destroyed that by making a 10-hour marathon session. He finds out after the fact, after sacrifice and all that, that the people who were there are using the technology of the internets and Al Gore's tubes to actually communicate with each other. And what does that mean? The asshole loser paid for shills from the Mother's Demand stuff group got there and kept saying this 81% manufactured fake number that they thought would have effect. But instead, because of Clover's contribution to the ability for those people, 170 something Texans, to communicate, they were able to research, bring up points, and almost, I think every single testimony from a citizen of Texas was separate and different, unique, and not everyone was as good or bad as the next, but they were certainly different. There was no copying or boilerplate bullshit, and that was due in part to Clover's effort. So he did that, and then you'd say, he's done. He's done a lot of 2A. He's done more than a lot of people. He's finished. He's wiping his hands of it. Now it's up to Texas. Instead, he decided not to go to sleep and to take that 10-hour footage, bring it down onto his computer, and he's in the middle of nowhere. He lives under a bridge in East Texas. I don't even think there's internet. So I don't know how long it took him to download a 10-hour video, right? And then he takes it onto his rinky-dink computer and starts chopping it up so that he's got a video with just the cops. He's got a video with just people who think that it's going to cost us money. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many, 9? The last I heard,
Nine total.
separate videos where he dissected and combined so that people can use that as a resource. So yeah, that's what's going on. That's just one of the projects he's working on. So I figured I'd try to briefly describe that and its significance to Jeff. So if you guys want to
Right.
chat about that, or if you had something to ask Jeff or brag about there, feel free. Otherwise,
No.
you've got other projects that I'm not going to talk about because I get in trouble for saying stuff, but I know
Right.
you might want to talk to Jeff, so feel free.
Oh no, I'm just, one of the cool things is, I'm not going to say that we took credit on that live stream for the 81% thing, but it's certainly become a laughing stock point. And you can see there, I've already created shirts and stickers playing around with that. So, and I invite other people to do the same thing. I don't own 81%, right? But
81% of gun owners own 81%.
right.
Wait a
so I
minute.
mean,
What was the actual claim that they were making?
so what it was is the University of Texas did a poll. They actually, let me back up. Everytown, which we all know is basically big brother, big sister to Moms Demand Action, right?
Mhm.
Both Bloomberg funded. Everytown had UT Texas do a poll. And in that poll, they found that 81% of Texans are opposed to constitutional carry. Well, there was several problems with that poll when we finally found the link. And shout out to, I think it was Sam J. I don't know if he's listening to this or will, but I had a viewer actually in the, I did not research this, had a viewer that finally found the poll they were citing. And every one of the Moms Demand Actions had a red button, and they would get up there and tout this. They're part of the 81% against this bill, right? But then they would also say they're supporting themselves. Yeah, right. And so, like I said, this viewer found that poll, and then you get to looking at this poll, and like I said, it was commissioned by Everytown, and as if that wasn't bad enough, it was the question for the poll, and I can't cite it verbatim, but was 72 words long. Right? The question was not, do you support constitutional carry in Texas? Right? It could have been that easy. It wasn't. It was 72 words long, this question, completely loaded question. On top of that, 5% of the people polled were identified as liberal. And on top of that, the sample size was less than 1,200 people. but yet 81% of Texans are against constitutional carry. Yeah, right.
Oh.
And it was, well, I'm sure you've experienced watching this stuff before. I've been aware of these things, but just had the opportunity to see it from like 8 hour 2, I guess. So 8 hours of it. And once I started watching it, it was very much like the experience I had when we started reading the race comments on the ATF, because it was amazing. They knocked me on my ass how awesome the comments were. It was like amazing. And that's what it turned out to be. Is I was like, oh, Clover's live. I'll watch it for a minute. Oh, it's boring Texas legislature. He's probably going to just sit there watching it for a long time and talk about it maybe. But then it's like, what did that lady say? What? And then the comment section went from something to 300 people were watching this thing live. Like I say, afterwards, we found out that some of those people were there. So using it as,
they were coming in. Yeah.
Using it with the internet's for to actually real time, be
I just spoke, right?
Well, we started to figure out that people were like, "Oh, I spoke an hour ago." They'd come and show up, but we figured anyway. So, the 81% was a joke because they would come up and say, "I'm with the 81% of Texans that oppose this," and we would. Well, after a while, we started seeing their button too, I guess. But we would sort of. We're sitting there for 10 hours watching something that's about 90% interesting, right? It's still got 10% of boring because you got to wait for them to show up. And luckily for the state of Texas's health, they wiped the fucking table and microphone and only used about 170 times 3 wet wipes in Texas, right? So thanks to somebody got a case of wet wipes.
And plus multiple employees to do it, apparently.
Yeah, they could only spend like 3 times before they had to go out and take like a refresher bath in some kind of oxygen chamber so they didn't die. So, some amount of it was bullshit, and we decided to crack wise at those times in the chat. It was pretty fun.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, the message that I would have brought to Texas is what makes any of these people think that Texans are too firearms ignorant, too immature, too stupid to do what Arizonans have been doing for a decade or more. I would put their Texas pride. I would challenge their Texas pride.
Oh, dude, there was 170 period total signed up. So there was something less. Clover refuses to give us the actual numbers. Something less actually talked. And then we figure probably 60-40 pro-gun, anti-gun, right?
Yeah.
So, 100 something of them were pro. So and like I say, there might have been like, if a person had 3 points, one of the points would reiterate something that they felt was important, but rarely were 2 points reiterating anything. Like there was a lot of diversity there, and not like, and here's another thing, but like here's what affects me, dumbasses. Like, did you think of this, dumbasses? Right? It was really good. They said it nicer than me, but so I don't know if exactly what you said there, but that's what was so awesome about it, is that not only were we sitting there watching just awesome points and great positions and learning how to better come up with challenges to people who would ask, what might be simple on surface. Why would you need a gun that can kill people, or can kill people better, or whatever? It's like actual answers to some of that kind of stuff that are more than the our reaction answers. But then to see that people were in there digging it, that was so much fun too. So anyhow, it was just fun on so many levels. Literally fun to watch. I ended up, I can't afford to sit around for 10 hours. Luckily, I only sat around for 8 hours. So
it was brutal.
It was 8 hours, and I couldn't leave my fucking computer because I don't give a shit about nothing except 2A. And that was the most 2A shit I've seen I want to say this year, but in a long fucking time. I literally didn't even walk away from my computer. I was sitting here eating walnuts and chocolate, watching the world, dig Second Amendment in Texas that day, and it was super fun. 300 people, and the thing is, it's just the one time I happened to see it. As soon as I mentioned it to some friends up in Washington State, that happens in Washington State all the time. I'm telling you, we're sitting here, Jeff Knox, who's I don't know how many times you want to make us feel like punks. Tell us how many times you've experienced it in Arizona alone, not let alone other states. So this isn't like the experience is new or unique or anything. Just the fact that we got to stick our YouTube expertise on it and focus, with our YouTube.
But how often is there? But how often is there we applied a megaphone to it, right? And how often is a megaphone applied to it? That would be my question. We know it's awesome, and we know it happens all the time, and we know it's awesome. But how often does it get that megaphone where other people can see how awesome it is?
Yeah. No, and having the coordination that provided, that's man, that's absolutely golden.
Yeah, that's the thing that really encourages me is it's kind of like the people that were there to testify had an entire team of researchers on their side. They literally had the entire internet at their fingers and having people looking up different stats or whatever. Yep. And say, "Oh, I'm going to use this point." That was a really good idea.
Well, and they obviously were, right? Because one speaker, they would get up and they would say, "You know what? All my talking points that I was going to talk about, they've been said a bunch of times. So here's what I got," right? And they would just riff. They would just go off of probably some crap they pulled off of Google, or maybe they were in our chat and pulled some points from some people. You could have been in that live chat literally. It said something in that live chat that prompted somebody in Austin to get in front of the senators and say, that was with what I'm hearing about the dynamic, that totally could have happened, right? And that's amazing.
I don't know if Woods is setting you up with like a T-ball here, or if he just didn't hear, but that's what Clover did. He posted 9 videos already with that he did. He grouped up the
the testimonies, and
Right.
then, put them together in groups.
I did the best I could. I broke it
But-
down
but,
by
let's not forget that Clover did a bunch of work or whatever, and he did the 10-hour chat or whatever. But a bunch of the people that were there also left comments in the main video with, what do they call them? Timestamps. So that you can click on the little timestamp. So if you don't know, the way the YouTube platform works is if you leave a comment to a video and you use the format of like for 3 minutes and 16 seconds, if you would type in 3:16, YouTube will turn that into a hyperlink without you having to do anything else than type in the digits 3:16. It'll turn that into a timestamp where it takes the viewer or the reader right to that portion of the video. And there's people that went in there and not just like Woods is talking about similar points, but like, here's the lady that ate a bug, or like, here's the time the guy stepped on his own foot, like the weird stuff that happened too. So yeah, people are having fun, and I think Clover's cool with people who want to chop it up to take their own take on it. And if you can find all the left-handed people, or the people that probably had a bad bug out bag, or the people that should have worn a tie, or whatever it is you feel is important, you can play with that too. Or maybe take the ones from this with other types of testimonials from maybe a different state and say, this what seemed effective in Texas, and here's what seemed effective in Oregon, and so forth. So that's the kind of stuff that is the next, is the evolution, is the creative use of our resources and our skill sets, instead of let's hone our skill set to manipulate each other into buying more useless crap that our industry is about to change models on so we can sell it to the next crap next year. Anyway, I'll quit ragging on that. I think DJ wanted to say stuff, so quit asking, just say stuff. Just interrupt me. I don't care. I interrupt everybody.
Oh no, I'm enjoying this, and Clover absolutely did us all a service by doing those breakouts in particular, because trying to go through 10 hours, that's a marathon a lot of people don't want to run, but the groupings of each and
shout out to people, to interrupt DJ for a second. Shout out to people that did it. That's another thing, is to this day, even right now, I'm getting comments that go, like G was talking about. They may not necessarily timestamp it, but they go, so-and-so said this or whatever. And then an hour later, so-and-so said this. And then an hour later, so-and-so said that. And I'm like, are you watching the whole thing? Are you watching a 10-hour live stream replay? Seriously? And they're like, yeah, I'm trying to. And I'm like, that's freaking amazing.
Drivers, overnighters, those of us who make the country work, those of us that don't have to live by some stupid rules and go to sleep when you're supposed to and wake up when you're supposed to, often have hours, stretches of drive-in or doing repetitive tasks where we value highly a long format show. So when it's not just long format of, hey, remember that joke, or hey, remember that, or hey, remember that, remember the one time, and remember, fuck, how many times can you listen to that? To have actual human beings who had the balls to get to Austin and then sit there for up to 10 hours. And sometimes I'm sure some of them stuck around to cheer on the others, right? Who had to stick around to the end. But holy crap, that's actual history taking place. That's like an audio version of the 2A equivalent of the private spacecraft returning from outer space with human passengers that no one even pays attention to, because they'd rather tell you about a millionaire who made a mistake making millions of dollars and fucking exploiting guns, instead of with the actual shit that's happening in the world, or the 2A equivalents that's happening with Clover over in Texas. All right, I'll quit.
I'll yield back to DJ. Sorry, DJ.
Maybe,
DJ, you were talking about the breakouts, DJ. I'll yield it back to you. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I had to say that, because for those that did do that, that's amazing.
Right on. I appreciate the representative from Texas. So yeah, like having those breakouts is great. I did, I hung in there for at least 3 hours. And like G was saying earlier, having that dialogue, kind of like our version of a back chat during the live that Clover was hosting, that was great. Here we are, probably all of us, almost to a person, experiencing that, where, it's like, get them, Clover, or, oh my God, did they just say that? And having this group of folks that I know, almost none of you, well, like none of the people in this room in person, I feel that I know quite well. And so having that be a time for us, instead of withdrawing and being, shunted to the side or having to defend ourselves or our positions, having that camaraderie there and the expression of it going forward was something that, I'm all behind that. my 2A spirit buoyed by that in a booyah kind of way. One thing after another. Booyah. Yeah. Hey, Texas. Thank you. Gonna take this. Next state. One and done. Here we go. Try and stop us now. Momentum. Everything. And
Texas will be a big win. I know it doesn't. I know it may not seem that way because Texas is seen as this pinnacle of freedom and just a gun owner paradise. And compared to a lot of other states, obviously we wouldn't be talking about this if it wasn't. Obviously, that's not true. But if we see Texas, if the rest of the country sees Texas do this, and don't get me wrong, I'm not thumping my Texas chest here or anything, but there's this notion that Texas leads the way, right? And so how big can it be if Texas does this? Because you've got all these people watching, you've got other states that have already led the way. They've already, I'm not gonna give this credit that 20 other states that are already there. We're late to the party. That's part of our argument. That's been part of our argument the whole time is Texas should have been leading the way on this. What the crap are we doing coming in at 21? But people are going to watch Texas more than they watch Oklahoma or Arkansas or Tennessee or one of those states, right? So it will be a big deal, and I think it will have a lot of impact nationally for other states that may be leaning in that direction.
Well, you got a future tense attached to that statement, and I want to say it's in the now. It's not will, it is. And as you're kind of indicating there, at least I'm going to riff on it. It's often said, so as California goes, so the nation goes. As Washington, D.C. goes, so the nation goes. New York City, clock all of those from the east to the west, but no one has decided to drop south to say, as Texas goes, so the nation goes. So I'm going to extrapolate out for that and make, I think, a reasonable suggestion that kind of momentum shift from the, second largest state, of our states, no one's going to look to Alaska for a tradition. They're going to look to Texas for what most of us, and I understand, erroneously sometimes think, and maybe in a comic manner, that, all Texans, as part of their birthright, are handed a 6-gun and, a 6-shooter and a lever gun.
Right.
That's not such a bad image to have in times or moments, at least like these, where we're not seeking a caricature. We're not seeking to, if we smile, it's a wry smile that's well earned for our cousins in Texas. Putting in the work, as Clover has, with that broadcast that we're talking about right now, so that others of us may forward the best parts of the 2A agenda in our own locale.
Now, did you guys?
But I'm really worried about the Wild West pimp style, though. Like, we need to make sure we watch out for that.
Did you guys have something for Jeff? I guess I keep sidetracking as much as everybody else.
Yeah, Jeff, there was a blog post that you did back in January. That caught my attention, and it had to do with some some DC stuff. But one of the things that you brought out in that blog post was incredibly important. I passed it on to a couple of other folks, and for anybody who hasn't read that, Jeff, you'll have to tell us where we might be able to find it, because I'm working on memory, not where it was actually published or where your blog is available. But the point that you were making was no Second Amendment organization called for any of those particular actions. No one was making a suggestion that this is the way. Yet the rest of the nation was able to see some of those events, some of those individual actions as representing all of us. How, from your perspective, what do you think will be the best steps that we can take going forward to increase the normalization and defeat the stereotypes that are so erroneous?
Oh, geez, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? And I'm not sure about the exact article that you're talking about. People can find most of what I've written at firearmscoalition.org, and most of my new stuff comes out at ammoland.com first, and then I eventually remember to post it on my own website. But I try and post at least weekly at AmmoLand, and am supposed to have a regular column in Firearms News, but I keep writing about stuff that's too immediate, and I don't, so it doesn't end up over in Firearms News. But the getting people always, it's if you're a Muslim terrorist, well, you're a terrorist, and the Muslim is just incidental, and it doesn't paint all Muslims, and we have to reiterate that with every single newscast that talks about the terrorist attack. But if you're a gun owner, well, a gun owner a guy with a gun shot up Walmart, and therefore all gun owners are responsible, and especially the NRA has blood on their hands, and it's all our fault. How do you change that? I don't know, except to stand up and say hell no. Not me, but I just, one of the things that just really helps every now and then is, thank God there's a good guy with a gun, as someone who will remain nameless said, to stop the bad guy with a gun. And those incidents, and bringing those up and reminding people of that. And the one thing that I like to do is try and bring any argument away from those people and them and what they might do and what this law could do, would do, might do to those people. I like to personalize it and bring it down to you and me, that this means that I would be required to spend an extra $30 and meet Pete at a gun shop somewhere and go through the full background check stuff when we know each other. And I know that if I sell Pete a gun, it's not a problem. And Pete knows that if he sells me a gun, it's not a problem. I don't have to worry that the gun's stolen. He doesn't have to worry that I'm going to go off and kill my wife with it. It's, why do we need to spend an extra $30 for that? So I try and bring all of these arguments down to a personal argument, that do you trust me to live this way? Do you trust me to carry a gun when I feel it's appropriate? Do you trust me to, you trust a 17-year-old kid to come at you, close on you at 100 miles an hour with nothing but a little yellow line on the pavement between you, but you don't trust me to have a gun in a holster in my belt? I like to bring the arguments down to personal. What does this law, how would this law impact me? How would this law impact you if you decided to purchase a firearm or own a firearm or carry a firearm? So that's kind of the direction I go with it. I don't know if that helps with what you were asking.
Oh, no, it absolutely does. I wish that I had the $1 million so that we could get that question answered 2A would forward and there'd be no more debate.
Yeah.
But and the article that I was referencing, G's gone ahead and thrown the link out there to both your AmmoLand and Firearms Coalition posts. It was the one on the 19th, and it was the one where it's like, okay, so no 2A org has called for any of this. No 2A org, or I'm guessing by extension, anyone who supports the 2A in the way that we are, do, and wish to be, desires the association with that kind of, I'm going to say, fringe. The fringes of, the perception of the fringes often, unfortunately, get rested. That mantle is rested on our shoulders. We are yoked with some really out there stuff. And the assumptions, and I'm sorry if I'm trying to keep it a little cowboy here because that's still in my mind, trying to get barbecue to help normalize things with his EDC. But the good guy with the gun, that's the white hat. But the black hat in this, the black hat analogy here is black guns. And, so we're talking black rifles, that sort of thing. So I would rather that things not be so black and white. I'd rather that they be many, many shades of gray, and that everyone's grayness is acceptable, that we don't have to be cut, dried, done. You are either A, you are B. We are so many, colors on that spectrum in between. And so I think that, instead of us constantly, and one of the points you were kind of making, not going to tell you how to feel about it, not going to insist you do it this way, but if we could get people who are citizens who are more inclined to think that it is so cut and dried, to realize
All right.
that we are.
You're around in a circle. Cut you off your DJ.
So,
Here's the thing. Okay, go ahead, Smeggy.
all right, yeah, I just kind of wanted to jump in on what Jeff said with the, do you trust me to have a gun or whatever? Back in the day, I used to argue with a guy in the office, and he was one of these, I like rifles, but why do you need an AR-15? And I remember saying that exact thing to him. I said, do you think that I am a bad person? He's like, no. But do you think I would commit a crime? He's like, no. I said, so can I have an AR-15? And he's like, well, you're probably safe, but I'm worried about everybody else, the crazy people. So that's kind of the response. I like personalizing it, like putting a face to going, you are hurting me. I literally have these at my house. I got to go get rid of them now because of what you said.
And I've written several articles over the years that address that directly. It's not you. I trust you. It's those other people. Well, guess what? I am those other people. That's the whole point, is that you and I, we are those other people. Or are you talking about those darker skinned people? Or are you talking about those Middle Eastern people? Or are you talking about those whatever people, and call out their prejudice, their their bias, that this imaginary other people that they're talking about. You and I, we know some yahoos out there that if I was the king of the world, there are a few people that I know that I would say, no, we're not going to let you have a gun because you're just weird and I don't trust you. But luckily I'm not the king of the world and I don't get to make that decision. And the reality is that weird guy that I don't particularly trust 99.99% of the time never does shoot himself in the foot, shoot his neighbor, kill the dog catcher, whatever. It doesn't happen. It is so, God, it's so astounding. We have, my belief is, over 600 million guns in circulation in civilian hands in the United States. That's twice what they used to say, and it's still another 200 million more than what they say now. I think that we're well over 600 million guns. I think that well over 100 million Americans have access to those 600 million guns. And yet we're all alive. We haven't killed each other. How can that possibly be? Well, because 0.002% or so of those people ever do something mean or stupid with them. And mean and stupid can't be legislated. You can't fix mean and stupid with a law. So here we are. It's just you and me that this law applies to, and we're the ones that don't need it. So why are we doing this again?
I definitely have stuff to add to that, but do you guys want to make some history real quick? Just do something on top of what normally people do. So I'm still live, right? You guys are hearing me right now when I do this?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going into StreamYard and I'm going to go over to my big channel and let's call this the thousanding of Riding Shotgun with Charlie. And then we'll put this in here and then we'll put a link to his channel, right? And then we'll just go live. So what I do with StreamYard is a shitty version of what Hangouts used to be, but it's better. It's made in Canada and we pay Canadians for it. And what's happening right now is I'm going to take the link from the other one that I just created. So if you go to my YouTube channel right now, the big one with 167,000 subscribers, it's going to be telling the world that there's a video about to upload, an upcoming live stream. And I'm going to give the dudes in here a link on the private chat so that they can jump into both rooms. Because even though this is a shitty Canadian version, it's better because it lets us do multiple rooms like this way better. Then I'll go over here and look at this Instagram post where Charlie's sucking up to his shitty Facebook followers. Why do I say he's sucking up to his shitty Facebook followers? Because he sucked up to his shitty Facebook followers and asked for 8 subscribers. How long ago? 2 hours ago. Those lazy good-for-nothings have given him 3 subscribers because he's still not at 1,000. So now let's go into this and quickly edit and schedule for later, add a thumbnail. I'm going to edit this with the thing to give it the thumbnail, to blame it on his shitty Facebook subscribers, shitty Facebook subscribers that are too lazy. Got to save this as, save it somewhere where you can find it, give it a dumbass name so you can find it, save, close, go back to where you shoved it, grab it, right? Apply, save changes, and then go live, flip over to branding, go over to, let's give it Bob's ugly thing. No, that's mean. Let's give it Mellow, and then we'll give it a quick Bob the Dalai Lama. We'll go.
Next episode, that was the lady.
All right. Welcome everybody. This is an impromptu live stream while we're live streaming on another channel, doing Every Second Matters. We just noticed. Let me screen share on 2 screens. Is that legal? Can I do this? I'm going to screen share on 2 screens. Are you guys still with me on the other one?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we're over here and we're over here. You don't understand. You don't have to understand things. We're also live here, and we're going to encourage you to subscribe to one of the best dudes in 2A. It's called Riding Shotgun with Charlie. He is 5 subscribers away from 1,000 subscribers. 1,000 subscribers on the YouTube platform allows a channel to monetize. It allows them to have a community tab. Now, a lot of people don't give a shit about the community, so they don't use a community tab. I suspect Charlie's going to use that community tab. He's going to be able to connect his channel to multiple things. I don't want to get into it, but it gives them, it's a level of, there's a threshold. It gives them a level of ability on YouTube. So I'm going to encourage as many people as possible to subscribe. And while we're live here, we'll just keep hitting refresh so that we can witness the historic thousanding of Riding Shotgun with Charlie. So those of you who are new to the world or don't understand anything, there's the Second Amendment, right? And for a lot of years, nobody bothered with it. And then recently it was cool to kick the Second Amendment around, right? And so there became Second Amendment activists. And then it's like, dang, there's a whole bunch of these Second Amendment advocates. How do we possibly keep up with them? Well, this dude decided to emulate somebody else who drives around in a car interviewing people. And he's now interviewed way more than 100 people all around the country. I think it's like 20-something states. So if you don't know somebody in 2A, chances are you can go watch a 20 to 40-minute interview with that person, learn about them, the organization that they either created or support, and why you should give a shit about them. Charlie does this on his own dime. Trust me, I have tried, I have coerced, I have threatened, I have manipulated him into making this something that he can do on a larger scale, but he insists on doing it grassroots. So all I'm asking now is that you subscribe so that we can all witness the thousanding of an awesome channel. You're not going to regret this subscription. There we go. So now we've seen the thousanding. What do you have to look forward to? If this dude ever goes live on his own channel, which he can probably now do because we've helped him with the threshold. Clover, am I wrong? Can he now get a super chat? Is he monetized? Is that a thing? Or am I crazy?
It will be a little while, but he can now go in and apply for all of that. Yes.
Right
Hey,
on. So thanks everybody.
Gee, I would join in and help with all of this, but Charlie's never invited me to ride with him.
I hear you. Don't feel bad.
I feel bad about it, you know.
Still learning.
I feel snubbed. Snubbed, I say.
Now, you might say, what do you mean?
I had to carjack him to get the 15 minutes I got. What are you talking about?
In Arizona. I was going to say, what? Charlie is in Massachusetts. How could he drive Jeff around in Arizona? Well, what do you mean?
I was in Dallas. I was in Dallas, and I got to sit around with Yehuda Rimmer what's her name? Amy Dillon. I got to sit around with Yehuda Rimmer and Amy Dillon while Charlie stole Yehuda's car and was driving around with everybody else, but then brought it back and gave it back to Yehuda and drove away. And there I was, you know, the whole time. Oh, look at that. Cheryl and Danny Todd.
This is video evidence of Charlie cramming Amy into the back seat of a car.
Dillon.
Just in a cruel way to cram more 2A interviews onto the internet. He doesn't care. So yeah, we've watched him breach through the 1,000 mark, like some kind of champion hitting that finish line or whatever. So appreciate it. I'm going to shut off the stream that doesn't matter and go back to every second matters. So thanks for watching over there. Thanks, Matt. Matt is Never Enough Ammo. He runs a chat that's older than your children, where he brings people. This dude helped create Every Second Matters, for crying out loud. This dude has been going live more than once a week since before your children were born, talking about 2A and a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, Matt's a good friend. Thanks for joining the chat here. We'll end that one.
Congratulations to Charlie.
That shows you how easy it is to run these things, and how, well, I want to say how good the Canadian one is, but it's pretty good. But how easy it is to run these things. And if you didn't understand it, this dude every Thursday takes time. Not he runs it. It doesn't run a 10-hour chat every Thursday, because some Thursdays he takes the time off to run like a 2-hour chat to help individuals be better at using tech. And you don't have to be better at using tech to sell people garbage that they don't need. You can be better at using tech to interview over 100 pro 2A activists so that people like me who can't get the information across, right, can find information that can be getting across, because Charlie is personable and like professional and like competent and all this stuff. So he gets people on, he gets the information across, and you get to learn that those 100 people are just regular people who have part-time jobs or full-time. What am I saying? They have full-time jobs. Yep. They work on our Second Amendment protected rights as their hobby. Like if we are lucky, as a second job, but very rarely is it their second job. It's more often their passion or their fucking hobby. So the 14th richest person on this planet hires the chick from Monsanto on one side, and then everything that entails. And then we've got a bunch of hobbyists. We've got a bunch of people who in their garage, when they're off work, protect the Second Amendment. And everybody just assumes it's done by some kind of flashy business or something. Charlie helps illustrate that that's not the case. So Charlie's a freaking superhero. And unfortunately, he doesn't like get paid, and he doesn't use Patreon, because this is the project, not the only project, because we've also got Tony Simon, we've also got KD, right? We've also got, I can keep going on and on, you know me. So we've got plenty of projects, but this is certainly one. That can you imagine what Charlie could do with those 1,000 subscribers if they each gave him $5 a month, the cost of a freaking coffee or a freaking taco or a freaking hot dog, right? For 1 month. And then that dude what could he do with $5,000 a month? I don't even want to know, because I know what he's doing with nothing. Yeah, so that was kind of neat. So we got to see Charlie hit 1,000. I've now created 2 channels like that. We've done the thousanding of Gary Gizzard, and this time we are solely responsible for the thousanding of Charlie. But look at how ineffective and useless Facebook is. He asked his friends on Facebook, can I please have 8 followers? And they're like, fuck you, Charlie, you can have 3. And then we went on YouTube, and it took us like a second for me to finally get to say, hey, and then he's probably, I'm guessing, over 1,000 at this point. Facebook sucks. All other platforms are better. All right, I'll shut up. I think DJ was asking Jeff stuff before I interrupted for that awesome break of actual using the internet for a reason.
You know, look at our community go. Look at that happen, just as it has. You know, another live action moment where someone has an idea, we're able to just clickety click and it's done. Like that kind of proactive activism rocks.
It's fun, but the people that watched it happen will eventually get tired of this. They'll leave. A new group of people will jump in, and there'll be a whole bunch of millionaires that sit there and go back to page 1 of the one book they've written, and they'll start raking in the money. And there'll be a new model of rail and a different light, actually a different light manufacturer. Once you start getting mad at Olight, start getting mad at the 13 versions of it that it was called before they called it Olight. But again, I tend to get pissed when I start thinking about all the awesome stuff that happens with people that are doing it on their spare time. Imagine what we could be watching and experiencing and shooting if we had, Brownells or any of the companies bigger than Brownells, or any of the millionaires that get millions of dollars by playing show and tell on the internet, devoting their resources to stuff that mattered. All right, with that in mind, I'm going to shut up again, give you guys an opportunity, because otherwise I'm going to go back to DJ's point earlier that he had kind of asked Jeff about, I think, what was the question? Like it wouldn't it be nice, I guess it wasn't so much a question, but like sort of how wouldn't it be nice if we were appreciated or people understood, or rehash everything, but wouldn't it be nice? And then Jeff offered an answer. I have a couple of points there that I made some notes, but I don't want to completely hog the thing. If you guys want to say something, I'll
proceed.
People that have listened to me rant before have already heard this, but I don't know about Smeggy and Jeff for sure. So if you're interested, I don't disagree with anything you said, but I think in addition, Sarah Cade, and her now has a real name that I don't remember, Hoffman, right? I think. Yeah. So from Minnesota, exactly who I'm talking about, because you got blown away by the same speeches in in Dallas and in Chicago. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. She made an awesome point a couple weeks ago on Polite Society, I think, or maybe on Second Amendment. I think it was Polite Society. And she had said, I guess your point was you were answering something to what would an anti say, or the typical what we say as dudes who've been in the game for a bit and enjoy guns for self-defense and collection and recreation and whatever. But when a chick comes into it as a mom and she begrudgingly gets a gun for security because she's afraid, to start putting yourself in shoes. I mean, come on, you could pick like 1,000 different shoes and still not understand her specific situation or whatever. So I guess just with that concept in mind, that when we think about it, we're always coming from our position. And remember, there's a lot of other positions out there. So my first point is that Sarah's point, and I'm probably going to summarize it incorrectly, but the gist of it is that let's say you're talking to somebody about gun control and they're like, guns are bad, right? You don't have to you don't have to put yourself in the position of justifying bad or evil or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, guns are bad. Let's not talk about that. Am I gone?
No, you're there.
You're good. I guess I had my little connection issue and I saw Smeggy disappear. I thought maybe I was losing it. So you don't have to even get into the I'm defending the atrocity or I'm defending the blah, because that's the whole ambush. Let's talk about it only when you have to defend the bad thing that happened that we're here talking about it for. So in order to avoid that ambush completely, you can go, violence is bad, right? So the worst possible thing you could do in a violent situation is take away one tool of evil, correct? Like you want to solve the root problem, and let's talk about the root problem and not the easiest blow off answer that's just been proven non-useful in the past. So you can, if am I saying the right word? You're just sidestepping it. You're effectively ketoing the situation into let's agree on something that has nothing to do with what you're accusing me or us or I don't know, but let's agree that this, and that now that we know that there's the base model, nothing you can do, you can start turning it into, why would you just take the guns? Aren't we worried about the knives? Or shouldn't we be worried about the person or the situation? Why would we assume that by just taking away the guns, we've somehow solved the problem? That seems like an excuse or a safety answer, right? Or a fake answer. And that's a way to I was going to say, I don't know. I'm not summarizing well, but a judo move, just a way to not fight them on their thing. And then the other is, let's remember that it's this weekend. I have to go look at my calendar. I think it's this weekend in Colorado. The Girl and the Gun is in their 9th year, and they have 400 ladies attending a conference that's both education, training, awareness, and Second Amendment is in there. That's one organization that's on my radar, and I'm just a dude trying to find out what all is out there. I'm certainly not aware of it all, because they don't need to talk to us, and they're not necessarily trying to talk to us or each other. So, I'm just out there trying to find them, and that's one I'm aware of. I'm saying there's probably more, potentially a lot more organizations, maybe not of that scale, but I guess when I was typing this, I was trying not to interrupt Jeff's response to DJ, but I guess again I'm saying this for Jeff and maybe Smeg here. I don't know if the other guys, I think, have heard me say this over and over. With this, I think that the perception has already changed, is effectively what I'm getting at. I think that what you guys were kind of saying before, like, wouldn't it be nice if gun owners weren't treated as if, or that we didn't have to get associated with or lumped in with? I know I'm generalizing it, but I think that that's already changed. And I think my justification for that, I think the reason I'm saying this is because Biden only gave us those 6 executive actions. He needed more. He could have done more. He decided to do just that because his political strategist told him that's a sinking ship. They told him you don't got ground there. The only other thing they could have told him is there's a bigger move. You got to play 4D checkers or whatever. And these suckers are going to think you're an imbecile if you do this and this. But there's no way he's playing that many levels ahead. I suspect that the game has already changed, that guns are already off the table, that the DC project has effectively neutered the concept that gun owners can be marginalized into some buffoon. What's the name of that movie with that guy who is a character of the guy who directed Red Dawn? There's that one movie with the guy who wears the jacket and he's a buffoon with a gun. He's got sandals, and everybody makes fun of that guy having a gun, and he's obnoxious. The Big Lebowski has the friend of the Big Lebowski guy. You know what I'm talking about?
Dude?
Yeah, right? Isn't that the guy that had the gun, and he's sort of like, he's a caricature of the director of Red Dawn. I forget that guy's name. The guy who directed
John Milius?
Milius, the guy who, like, so they think of gun owners as some sort of like over the top, I'm going to pull out a gun to solve all my arguments, or maybe even Hunter S. Thompson, who's just a reckless imbecile, like crazy, and somehow he hasn't killed anybody, or at least we don't know about the people he's killed. And, like every gun owner is just this either waiting to happen or is like that, right? Like that's gone. Like there's no way they can throw that on us. And like you guys are kind of edging around the concept of having to defend ourselves from the atrocity or the criminal or the crimes and stuff. And that's getting, I think we've accomplished that. We did that kind of before the chicks were here. That was part of the result of that grassroots. They couldn't keep throwing that at us. There's just too many gun owners that they couldn't keep saying that we're all criminals. Problem is, all the gun owners' wives started buying guns. And instead of gun owners going, hey, little girl, we got the pink one and that's all you're welcome to, but stay out of our gun shop. The real life, they were like, we'll just make our own gun shops. And we're also invited into the first gun shops, and we're already part of the first gun shop. So it's like, it was nothing to let girls in, and they've literally taken over. So I'm going back to that premise that the 400 ladies in Colorado this weekend who are up training the shit out of it, and they're just indicative of a massive wave since, well, I think technically the early 2000s, but most recently since at least 15, we're seeing major amount of ladies, not just in the gun community, but active players. And those people, those women are not unaware that there's a political thing. They did not join as gun owners like I did as a kid who decided, once in a while I get to go shooting and hunting, and if I'm good, I get to this, and for Christmas I'd like that. Like, these people are jumping in, like, I'm protecting my child in 2021 in the political environment, and I've got a whole different view of my government and what's necessary and what they're trying to do and who's pulling what on who. And I'll shut up again. Am I wrong? But I think that
we're making progress. There's no question about it. And the stats show it. The numbers show it. And I remember commenting, I think I might have put it in an article, but remember the big zombie craze. And there for about 3 years, first it was the year of the AR, and then it was the year or two of the zombie. And I was walking around the SHOT Show, and it dawned on me that there were a lot of women doing business in that SHOT Show. And I started paying attention to it, and I said, holy cow, when did this happen?
You're talking about Florida. I think you're talking about 2009 in Florida. That was the zombie year, and that's the last year we ever saw a booth.
Yeah. And it was probably 2010 in Las Vegas that I just looked around and I said, man, there are a lot of women doing business in this place. It's not just what used to be, you would have the occasional babe on the guy's arm, or the girlfriend or the wife dragging along behind the guy, the mom and pop. But suddenly it was just all over the place. And it's like, okay. And if you look around, we're slowly gaining grounds in the Black community, and that has gained a lot in the last few years. If
it was only slowly until 2015 in real life, but then everybody experienced it last year because of all the groundwork that's been laid since 2015. But when 2020 happened, yeah,
there's still the problem of Blacks feeling like they're welcome in our house, and that's a bit of a challenge. The Black gun owners have built their own bigger houses, but we've still not done a good enough job of making it clear that you're more than welcome in my house too. There's still that perception of them good old boys down there at the gun club, and
perception. Well, am I interrupting you if I interrupt you right now, or do you want to go?
No, go ahead.
I think that's a perception, because that's a great point, because I've never heard anybody, this is why I cherish these, because everybody else, we're looking at it from the same angle. This gives us a bit of a different view on this one. So I hear you, and I don't disagree at all. I just wanted to ask or throw in that either the perception of or the actual people, because there's no way to debate it. There are people, and then there's the perception of the people, and then everything in between and on top of it. But basically, those are the two elements. We got the perception and the reality, but both of those, as the reality disappears, the perception, unless it gets fostered by something else, perpetuated, right? It's going to disappear. It's some kind of echo afterwards. So I've been around gun shops way too long, and I literally love gun shops, gun shows, surplus stores. So every time I have an opportunity in my whole life, I've been going to them. I mean, there's no possible way anybody is ever going to convince me that gun people are racist. I've been way too many, diverse, everywhere, everything.
Which is not to say that there aren't racists
there can't be for sure, but I mean, it's definitely not pervasive or nothing. And
no, absolutely.
And then I've definitely learned that now, what somebody will perceive as, somebody will see a flag that they don't like and perceive that as an offense. So I would say you are offended by something I'm not offended by, but we live in a world where you're allowed to be offended by whatever you want. So knowing that the value of perception, or whatever, the value of being offended is fluctuating, right? And it's moved to a different place than what I've lived in. Knowing that the people that existed in the past in doing what they did, and knowing that they're not let's say, a racist or mean or anti-woman or dumb, or they like 9mm or whatever their horrible thing that you have perception of, right? Whatever
Right.
that actual was and whatever the perception of it now today, I understand that if somebody who's, I'm going to just use the word tender. So I understand all the tender people are going to get offended that I called them tender. But if those tender, soft people that are going to get offended by something they literally don't understand, and they're satisfied to be offended and not, they don't feel any obligation to understand that they are satisfied to be offended with their ignorance. Yes, those people, if shown the gun shops I walked into when I was a kid, would freak the fuck out because they couldn't handle a Nazi flag. I understand that the man who killed the Nazi and took that fucking flag and brought it home needed to do that because he killed a man. And by taking it home, he's going to his culture and saying, this is what you asked me to do, and I did. And it fucking ripped my guts out to do it because I don't like to kill other humans. But this, and our culture says, that is okay. You did what you had to do. Hang that on your wall. We understand. Well, your grandkids are soft and they don't understand. And now they're offended and their perception of your generation is wrong. And there's people that are going to exploit that differential of knowledge and they're going to fucking exploit that and profit or divide, right? Well, that's the problem, is that people are going to assume and allow that division there. But yeah, there's those shops that could have, and that guy didn't have a Nazi shit on his wall because he liked Nazis. It was because, fuck you, Nazis, we killed you. Your gun is here because I killed you, and this is your gun, fucker.
Yep.
And everybody who liked your shit, fuck you. This is your gun here, right? This is blood of you on this gun here. It's not because, oh, I like Nazis or blah, blah, blah. So my generation, I don't want that fucking gun. I don't fucking want that gun, right? I understand why my grandpa cherished it. I don't have the same things my grandpa had. I don't need that gun. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's different today if a bunch of fucking weirdos are running around with their freaking Nazi loving. That doesn't happen in real light because we wouldn't stand for it. No one would. So the perception and the manipulations and the marginalizations are not happening anymore. But the problem is that, yeah, there is some division, some gaps. All that's going to disappear with the internet, or has the potential to disappear in moments with the internet, and just somebody taking a little bit of responsibility and going, oh, you know what, I'm not allowed to just be completely ignorant and upset over here. If I put an ounce of effort into realizing what the real situation is, I can get past my trip and not cause this stress, and then we can move on.
Well, you know, it works the same way when you're talking about Civil War reenactors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's a lot of the softists you're talking about, and oh, well, that's a racist flag. And these guys are going out on the weekend, hundreds of guys, right? They pick a side, north, south, whatever. They don't honestly, they don't care. A lot of these guys have both styles of uniform. They go out, they shoot a bunch of blanks, and they all lay down on the ground to play dead to show us how many Americans, both sides were Americans, right? To show us how many Americans died in the Civil War and how horrible it was, right? It's a history lesson. It has nothing to do with race. But because that flag is present, it's a bad thing or something.
You need those artifacts for that presentation,
right.
Or that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's called history.
Thank you.
The problem is we can't make people be interested or want it. So, you know, it's just one of those things. And I'm sure that when whoever wrote down Doomed to Repeat It, they were dealing with some version of the same frustration, right? The same struggle.
Yeah. But this is one of the things, is that watching Civil War reenactment was one of the things that really got me interested in that history and understanding what that period meant to our country, and studying it, you know, with a different eye. So, you know, if we take that away, if we keep pushing that history off into some back corner somewhere, then where's the conversation starter? Where's the interest? Where's the generation, you know, for this next generation to learn about it and inquire about it? It's just, oh, that was bad. Okay, that's all you need to know. Stop there. Not good. not good.
Yeah,
But
Jeff, absolutely. And the increased perspective and understanding of the history is so key. And for folks that want to just, pop off, be a reactionary instead of getting that, the indication of the cultural heritage that we share, completely counterintuitive to a lot of us, but understood, when it comes to the general populace. The pathways to 2A and its historical understanding are something that I really wish were as key as they have been. So that when someone wants to have, when a young person is trying to develop their sense of not just civic and cultural pride, but pride in country, there's a disconnect. I'm 50, I'm 51. I have a disconnect, no kids. Sometimes I really don't get, I understand the yearning to be free and forge your own path. I wish there were more, I wish that the ways to engender that were more obvious to me.
yeah, yeah. And something to throw in here is back in 1966, 67, 68, the Black Panther Party, with some of the things that they were doing and engaging in open carry in California, and just the tension that created and the laws that came about in response to that. I remember I was 6, 7 years old, and my father was on the phone with someone. Illinois was generating their FOID card. Thomas Dodd was pushing the Dodd bill, which became the Gun Control Act of 1968. And my father was on the phone with someone, and they were talking about the Black Panthers and griping about these crazy communist black guys and what they were up to. And my father said, no, now wait a minute, hold on. Because I'm only listening to one side of the conversation. And definitely my father was referring to them as crazy communist black guys with guns. But he said, no, now hold on a minute. I don't agree with their politics. I don't agree with their objectives, but they have every right that you and I have to buy those guns, to have those guns, and to carry those guns, as long as they're not threatening or using them against someone unjustly. Don't ever let yourself be suckered into, well, they shouldn't have them, because if you go there, then none of us have them, and that's the end of it. And that was something to hear from, my Texas father in 1966. So I probably 1967 anyway, because my family was not known for being embracing other cultures and races back at that time, but he understood that the Second Amendment is for everyone, and that was what he was putting forward. And we have to keep putting that message forward and letting it be known that, our house is open. You're welcome to join our club or make your own club, and we'll do stuff together. Either way, we're okay, and we're happy to work with you.
Because after all, it is our club. It is the club for all of us. And that community building that was happening in Oakland and across the country in those years, so much of that is ignored for, again, the reactionary, the hot button stuff. Guys in black leather jackets, berets, and firearms. But they're forgetting about, or many simply do not know that, educational programs, nutrition programs, the community building, the activism that was going on. Could we, at least in that era, have found a more salient example of what we would be using or hope to use in the contemporary sense? I'm not
pushing
so sure.
Pushing the concept of self-sufficiency, self-governance, self-discipline. It was a message. It is a message that the inner city black community today could definitely stand to hear and emulate. And it's it's tough with the media telling us all that we're racist jackasses, and can't understand and got to keep our mouths shut. Where do you go with that? No, you're a white guy. You're a straight white guy. Shut up. Go home.
Well, you know what, Jeff? One of the ways that I do and did just at a Friday gun show here in outside of Omaha was I wore my Tony Simon 2A for E shirt.
You bet.
Yeah. And, I've got, of course, there were a lot. It's a rural community across the river where this was held. And of course, so I drew some looks that, as they were, parsing what the message of my shirt was. There was the look away, the eye roll. But there were also a few other people, though I didn't have time to engage them, where I saw click. Mm-hmm. They got that message. And there's a guy, PNW Woods. He's an educator, school, not public school, but elementary school. And so on Every Second Matters on Tuesdays and whatnot, that's a shirt that goes in his rotation because it isn't screaming a message that's going to be offensive to all of those, decidedly young women who are his coworkers. Mm-hmm. So if you can get that message in there somewhere and you catch the eyes that are interested and you let the guys, the eyes that roll, if you set those to the side for a moment, increasing that peace and understanding, that's one of the critical pathways to me to a acceptance and that diaspora that we all really, really could benefit by. Just another quick observation here. Obviously, those of us here, this crew, no racists here. We would not be dialoguing about people like Kevin Dixie, Argo J, Tony Simon, Maz Toure. We wouldn't even know who those guys are. We couldn't give you the historical reference for the Black Panther Party, for Eldridge Cleaver, for any of those folks. So the idea when I see some of those eye rolls that my perspective is the one that's defective, that can be a hard pill to swallow some days. It really can.
Yep. And don't forget Brother Ken.
Indeed.
When you say something in a slogan or a motto, right, like it can be interpreted by the reader based on their mindset and perception, and then the setting. One of my favorite things with Every Second Matters is a story for Every Second Matters, I guess. We sat down in the cop car one time, and in the cop car, the headliner is all a bunch of patches and stuff from adventures in the cop car. So there's Every Second Matters patches up there. And one of the kids, from one of the dudes who's gun websites, right, we're a bunch of people. So one of his kids was in the back seat, and he was little then. And we're driving somewhere, and he used to like drive around the back of the cop car and whatever. And he goes, "Oh, Every Second Matters. They told us about that in school." And this, I don't know how to judge kids' age. He was a little kid, right? And we're like, "Oh, really?" And I go, "What did they tell you, or what does it mean, or something?" Right? I forget. But the little kid goes, "There's two things." And then I'm trying to, and I thought that was the best. I'm like, "Oh, really?" All right. There's two meanings. What's the first meaning? And he goes, "It means that." Oh fuck, I can't remember. I'm gonna mess him up. Am I gonna mess him up? It was. I might have messed up the order, but he goes, "There's every second place matters. Like even if you didn't get first place, it still matters if you were second place." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then what was the second one? And then he goes, "What was it? It was I can't remember the other one now. But the other, it was something similar. It was something, to the effect of whatever, some lesson that you would have learned in school or whatever. So anyway, I thought, well, wow, because neither one of them were the gun thing, right? Know that. But
right.
It's the mindset and the setting and everything of the, I think it was nobody, there's no second place. I just had thought of them too. Obviously, I don't know what it's like for Clover to do a 10-hour one, because I haven't done that in a while. But 3 hours into it, I'm losing it a little bit. But anyway, so some of that, I guess I was going to say, DJ, is when you got a shirt on that says all gun, well, it depends. Tony's shirt says gun control equals, and then the word racism. There's other shirts out there that are on that riff that say all gun laws are racist. That's a lot different shirt. And then there's some that say gun control is
racist or something. So one that says all gun laws are racist, somebody has to read that, acknowledge it, and unless they are really not thinking, something's got them distracted, they're pretty much going to understand that one. But what my thing is with the gun control, with the equal sign and then racism, is somebody might be looking at you and thinking, that's a white guy with that shirt. I'm thinking the opposite of what that shirt is all about. Does it make sense? And I don't want to put in their heads what they're thinking, but I'm just thinking, because of it's so simple, I give people a benefit of the doubt with Tony's shirt. Like if they look at, like, I guess what you're saying is you're trying to understand what their perception of you was. It's like bouncing back and forth. What the fuck happened? Like I usually, if somebody because I own 10 of those shirts, after about the 16th glance where somebody was like, and I'm thinking, oh shit, they think I'm a racist, right? Like I quit bothering. I can't control what people are going to think about it. So I'd figure some of that is people are going to get that wrong impression, maybe.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of easy for some folks, especially with me, because I am not in camo. I do not have a spanking short haircut. I am a long hair, leather jacket wearing, DJ. So I don't fit the mold with a lot of that. And I'm immediately placed by some of those eyes, I am quite sure, as some, extremist or,
maybe somebody trying to incite or like, look at the racy, edgy words on my shirt or whatever. But what I figure is, first off, fuck them. You can't tell what everybody else is going to think of something, so let them discover on their own. But for all those people that are like, what is that all about? They're either going to be the type of person that's like, let me get my phone. What the hell? Gun control equals racism, right? Or they're going to be like, I've never heard of that before, but now it's in there. Now it exists. Like gun control and racism in the same sentence. What? And now if it ever shows up again, it's like 11 o'clock. You're like, oh, I see 11. It's not because it happens twice a day. It's because you see the numbers and you think about it, right? So once it's in your head, it's like the yellow car, those kind of things. It's like once it's in your head, you start going, oh, gun control and racism. What did Maj say? What did KD say? Right? What's Tony saying? And now you get it from actual sources that actually have something to say. You know what I mean? So I look at us as like the whiff of the fried onions, and Tony's the hamburger.
Actually, I'm kind of hungry. I like that analogy.
I figured Tony would like that analogy.
You bet. Hey, I'm going to take off, Pete. It's
right on. Thanks for jumping in.
Fun.
Appreciate it.
Y'all have a great second. What's left of it. Bye, guys.
You too.
Well, this is what we do. We invite a bunch of people in, and if they don't jump in, they're not 2A, and if they don't last longer than everybody else, they're not 2A enough. So we judged and we've determined. So now we know who the real 2A is and who isn't. But
yeah.
I appreciate you jumping in. And anytime you want to chat, let me know. You got my soapbox, and at some point, I'll be able to come up for air and get you on to fill in some blanks in my projects with the 2A history stuff if you're still willing.
Okay, yeah, we'll try and do that. I'm busy, but happy to help if I can.
Right on. Appreciate the time. Thanks for jumping in.
See you later, guys.
Yep, take it easy. And that's it. In the same note, I also am going to get going. So I guess I am exactly not 2A as much as Jeff.
Yeah, whatever.
So
do whatever Jeff
same
Knox
2A.
does.
Then
Why don't you do whatever Jeff Knox does more?
I plan to. But
all right.
The invite. Have a good one, guys.
Go
easy. So now we're down to the 2est of A's, and at some point we're going to end it because all these people out here ain't even saying nothing. So at this point, we got to assume we're just being watched by bots, people that are paid by Bloomberg, or maybe they're working for Bloomberg but not getting paid. How bad would that be? Imagine sitting there and hating stuff that's 2A and then going, dang it, Bloomberg should be paying me. And then having the dilemma of knowing that you don't really want to get paid by Bloomberg, but he would literally be paying you to be doing the actions you're doing. So there's people out there like that. There's some people that are like, I don't care because I'm rolling in the dough, getting paid for it. Every third matters. I don't know what that's all about. That would be crazy. That would be a mixed message. Imagine what that would be all about. Do we got anything else? Barbecue's been sitting there just coasting. He's sort of like if you got one of them bikes with a bunch of seats on it, he's just sitting there not really biking or not really pedaling. He's just enjoying the breeze. Not steering, but he's not pedaling yet.
Well, the 2A day on the calendar has expired in the Eastern time zone. We know that Barbecue is going to be out there making sure that he is a Second Amendment proud kind of guy. He'll carry that through the rest of the month. But perspective seeking, we were talking about that a little bit, and we could go for a lot longer. Don't necessarily want to do that, but in trying to increase my 2A piece, I saw a great interview today. Before my nap, I caught Walt doing about an hour-long interview with Queer Armorer, and went ahead and
when did that happen? Because I seen his nerd battle debate thing for like an hour and a half earlier today, and then while I'm watching the nerd battle, it shows me that he did another one for an hour, the one you're talking about. But when was that? Like in the middle of the night or in the morning, or was that last night?
It was supposed to, it was yesterday. I'm having trouble with the hours to calculate. Well, but I didn't get a live notice. Yeah, I didn't get a live notice on it. So I was at least 8-10 hours, before it reposted. There were no comments. The live comments were turned off.
But it was a live thing then, so it wasn't a video that you posted. It was a live thing that you missed.
I do believe, although there wasn't audience participation was not a portion of it. I do believe the comments were rolling when it did air live. But what I was able to glean from that so much, I harvested so much from that interview, and then I popped over because the Patreon suggestion was made for Queer Armorer, and I encourage everybody, go there. You do not have to be a Patreon to read it's a treatise that Queer Armorer has written, and the perspective shift and gain that I became aware of just today is something, wow, that's where I'm going to be efforting some of my educational efforts in making sure that all perspectives are at least considered. If you want to be dismissive, do it. But this person's story.
Are you talking about Gun Control's Racist History or a different post? There's only 11 posts. On Patreon?
The Patreon for Queer Armorer.
Right. There's only 16 posts on that account. So I'm saying, is it one of those posts?
Yes.
Is it the one called Gun Control's Racist History, or is it before that?
I'm not going to be able to remember the title right now, but it is page after page after page. It's kind of like like a channel intro sort of thing, except very in depth. And taking that in tandem with that live interview, so much that I learned that I felt like I'm sitting, DJ, you should have been thinking of this. But of course, not having those experiences or enough friends with those, thankfully, some of the experiences that Queer Armorer has had, there's something very, very important there for us to take. Not just in his individual case, but then as a reminder, not so gently, that our perspective is never a be all or end all. There is another chapter to be written by someone else every day, every minute, every second matters to someone else in a different way. Respect.
All right, you kind of DJ'd us, but it at a point, so.
Sorry, man.
DJ. It's like a third of a DJ to a half of a DJ, somewhere in there. So I get you, and I'm thinking that's sort of what I was trying to get across earlier too. I think I don't know if I get it across good, if I mix it with a bunch of other stuff that was equally as awesome. So it's hard to remember it all, but somewhere in there, I was thinking about as the I don't know what to keep calling them, like the traditional things that we say to each other. Is that a more? I don't know what a more is, but I think that's the word. But the jargon, whatever, the like little things that we like, like shoot them and drag them in the house. Like nobody even knows what that is anymore. Like that was a thing back in the day, and it was always a thing that people used as a way to say an absurd thing that no one would do. But because no one used it for a long time, some dumbass thinks that somebody really thought that, and now there's a bunch of people misunderstanding it and scolding the past.
You know what I mean? Like it's sort of like zombie shit got taken all out of, the zombie thing had a whole different meaning in the 1990s, or I should say the 1980s, I guess, at gun shows, back when survivalists were a thing, right? And then it got all taken out of context and then developed a whole other thing on its own. And now, it has nothing to do with what the original thing was. So I don't know if I'm making it clear or not. But anyway, I was getting at that, as things change, it's not just that like let's say a decent caliber exists and then some dumb Nazi comes up with a shitty metric caliber and everybody uses it, right? Like it's more than just the like evolution of stuff and things, but like that weak anemic caliber makes it so that people hate shooting and guns and they start hating gun rights and gun owners, right? And then for a long time there's like a new like bunch of people that hate gun owners based off of something that they don't even remember happened to their grandparents or something. But then, so things change, but then everything changes underneath. So at the same time, everybody's hating them. Then the 45 ACP resurfaces and everybody's like, holy moly, guns are amazing. And then they're freaking common knowledge again, or common place. But that's not permanent either, So that's the trick, is to, like, I think it was Reagan or whoever got that kind of thing going. Like the trick is to teach and not to assume or to coast, but to, hey, we're coasting through the water, but it's because we're swimming with a technique, and it's because we continue to swim even when it's smooth and when it's choppy, and it's, we can rest occasionally, but it's because we're swimming, and we swim so that we can rest occasionally, and we appreciate the rests. We don't expect to stop swimming because we know we drown. If we stop swimming, we know we're not making progress, right? If we stop swimming, we'd be called treading water. And we'd be defending against different adversaries. That if we keep swimming, and yes, when we keep swimming, the temperature is going to change and the depth is going to change and the terrain might change around us because we're going into new territory. But, the alternative is to not do anything and die, or to tread water and allow adversaries to maneuver around us and prevent us, basically create a situation where we die or do their bidding. So yeah, it's a I think you're expressing the same thing, that the whole thing's changing, I guess, right? That it's not like there's some glimpses and some elements that remain the same, but since it's all changing, well, I think you're just saying it's neat to see it and that you realize that there's more to it. But I guess I was trying to get a point across the second part, that there's more to it, and don't be discouraged. If you're discouraged, that just means that something, the whole thing, if a door opens or whatever, like, if you're discouraged about this, turn around, because that just means something moved over there. So, anytime you don't like the weather, just wait a minute and then you will like the weather, but don't act like that's the only weather, because it's going to change again and you're going to not like the weather again for a minute, and then it'll change again, and so you just got to get used to that.
Yeah, the fact that things are dynamic and elastic, and you need to be able to react and respond without being a reactionary, taking something in. Yeah.
And not get worn out in the process, or expect that you need a perpetual motion machine, or that, that's what we have joints for, so that we can spin them, and, they're going to get sore after a while, but hopefully the next person comes along and takes the majority of the weight for a bit.
Indeed.
Before you burn out. All right, well, I don't know. Now everybody's leaving us. We got 4 viewers, except for you and Indeed Makojo. Nobody's saying nothing. So we have to assume there's 3 droids, Makojo, and us. So we don't need to do the show for those 3 droids. We can just let Makojo in here and chat. So with that, it's 3:57, and